Chapter 3060. No more. Zhen Qing's expression was also gloomy. He was originally a sentimental person. Seeing Xiao Hua, whom he thought highly of, fall to such a state, he had long been heartbroken. Otherwise, he wouldn't have left the matters of the Jade Archive Hall and personally come to deliver the life tablet. He said in a low voice, "Next, we should let the disciples on duty search you. As long as you don't have anything from my Imperial Thunder sect in your storage bag, you can leave the mountain. Once you leave Sky Thunder Peak, you will no longer be a disciple of my Imperial Thunder sect." "All right." Xiao Hua turned around and said loudly, "Which fellow Daoist will come and check me?" Alas! Zhen Qing glanced to the left and said loudly, "Xiao Hua was previously a meritorious member of my Imperial Thunder sect, and he was even the famous terrifying phoenix in the Great War of Dao and Sword. If you all perform a body search with your level of cultivation, you will be tarnishing Xiao Hua's reputation for no reason. How about I do it myself? If Great Thunder Palace blames me, I will take responsibility." "Yes, disciple understands." A few aura-refining disciples and even foundation-building disciples who were about to leave stopped and respectfully said, "Master, you're the one who's going to leave." Xiao Hua pulled out the storage bag on his waist and handed it to Zhen Qing. He said with a smile, "Martial uncle, please take a look." Zhen Qing took it and looked at it. He couldn't help but smile. "Your storage bag is empty, what's there to see?" Then, he threw it to a foundation-building disciple and said, "You also take a look." That foundation-building disciple naturally knew that Xiao Hua wouldn't stupidly put anything in his storage bag. There were so many disciples behind Myriad Thunder Valley, who would take it? Therefore, he also took a look and returned it to Xiao Hua. "Martial uncle, please search me." Xiao Hua raised his hand and said with a smile. Zhen Qing stretched out his hand. A green light flashed and covered Xiao Hua from head to toe. After a while, Zhen Qing smiled. "Correct, there's nothing." "Yes, disciple." Alas, disciple didn't commit a heinous crime and was expelled from the sect. "There's no need to find trouble for myself." Xiao Hua smiled and cupped his hands. "Disciple thanks Martial Uncle Zhen Qing for taking care of me during these decades in Imperial Thunder Sect." "You're welcome." Zhen Qing returned the greeting. "Although you are no longer a disciple of the Imperial Thunder Sect, if you have the time, you can still return to the Imperial Thunder Sect. This old man will wait for your return." "All right, if I have the time, I will come back." Xiao Hua's eyes were somewhat moist. When he turned his head to look at Zhuo Minghui, Xiong Yang, Kui Hongshan, Yang Qinglian, and Dui Chimeng, his gaze shifted from one person to another. His tears couldn't help but fall. The Imperial Thunder Sect was finally leaving. Master's wife, eldest apprentice brother, apprentice sister, junior apprentice brother Kui, junior apprentice sister Dui, Li Wuqing, all apprentice nephews. Xiao Hua bit his lip, holding back the tears that fell. Although he had already mentally prepared himself, when it came to truly parting, even though it didn't involve life and death, he still couldn't help but feel heartache. After all, when they met again, it was no longer their original bodies. Senior brother, godfather, uncle master, everyone bowed in unison. Xiao Hua's heart ached when he saw this. His vision was a little blurry. He bowed deeply and called out, "Until we meet again." Then, lightning flashed around his body, and thunder rumbled. With a flash of light, Xiao Hua's figure streaked across everyone's eyes, rushing out of the Sky Thunder Peak. "How dare you, this place!" A late-stage Foundation establishment disciple in the sky was furious. He was about to shout at Xiao Hua to stop flying. After all, the Imperial Thunder Sect had a rule that low-level disciples couldn't fly in front of the Sky Thunder Peak. However, when he saw Xiao Hua instantly fly out of the Sky Thunder Peak and disappear into the sky, he was stunned and muttered, This is the Imperial Thunder transformation. How is this possible?" Even Zhen Qing turned pale with fright. However, after a moment, Zhen Qing woke up and couldn't help but exclaim, He is nameless." Yes, in the entire Imperial Thunder Sect, how many people could cultivate the lightning escape technique to the Imperial Thunder transformation? It seemed that other than Sect Master Chen Lazy, there was only nascent Soul Nameless who appeared briefly in the Dao Sword battle, right? At the same time, He suddenly realized that if Xiao Hua didn't have nameless strength, how could he know about Sun Qian? Instantly, everyone on the Sky Thunder Peak was stunned. Silence, not a single sound could be heard. The Great Thunder Palace expelled a disciple. This disciple wasn't an ordinary disciple of the Myriad Thunder Valley, but the famous terrifying phoenix in the Dao Sword battle. Furthermore, he was a nascent soul cultivator, the one who saved tens of thousands of Dao sect cultivators from the sword tomb, the one whose lightning escape technique was almost on par with the sect master. You all. Zhen Qing immediately realized the seriousness of the matter. Her gaze swept over and she said coldly, "This matter, no one can leak it out, or else, you will be killed without mercy." Then, just as Zhen Qing was about to fly, a wave of endless pressure like rolling waves pressed down on her, and an unrestrained divine sense also swept over. Sect Master has advanced. Zhen Qing's expression shook. Although her body trembled under the pressure, she still cried out in surprise. Fortunately, the pressure and divine sense disappeared in a flash. Those low-level disciples who lost control and fell into the air were caught by the masters who recovered their magic power in time. Alas, this old man has to go to the Great Thunder Palace to report to the sect master. Zhen Qing swept her gaze over the people of the Myriad Thunder Valley. Junior sister Minghui, you also come along. Yes, Zhuo Minghui's heart was filled with mixed feelings. She was more shocked than anyone else. How could she have thought that the little 10th layer Qi refining loose cultivator was actually a nascent soul cultivator now? On the contrary, Xiong Zhili's face carried a kind of understanding and carefree expression. Inside the Great Thunder Palace, the pressure and divine sense of the late nascent soul stage swept over everyone, causing them to go wild with joy. Fairy Xian Hua's face was relaxed. She was the first to fly over from the praying mat, clapping her hands and smiling. Great! Sect Master has come out of seclusion. We can temporarily take off our heavy responsibility. As she spoke, she led everyone out of the Great Thunder Palace. Sure enough, in the distant horizon, a bolt of lightning streaked across, faster than a meteor. In the blink of an eye, it landed in front of everyone. After the lightning flickered a few times and was extinguished, Master Qian Lei was revealed with a smile on his face. Congratulations on advancing to the late nascent soul stage, Sect Master. Fairy Xian Hua and the others bowed and smiled. Ha 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 tilde, what a fluke. Master Qian Lei waved his hand and lifted everyone up. This old man's accumulation of cultivation is still insufficient. If not for the change in my Imperial Thunder Sect today, this old man would have broken through the bottleneck in one fell swoop. Otherwise, I'm afraid I wouldn't have come out of seclusion for several years. Oh! Fairy Xian Hua was taken aback and seemed to have thought of something. Then, Reverend Lei Meng smiled and said, "It seems that Sect Master's lightning escape technique has also improved. I'm afraid it's on the verge of the Imperial Thunder transformation, right?" Hehe, Lei Meng's vision is really good. Master Qian Lei smiled. Lightning birth and lightning death is the essence of the change. As long as you break through the shackles of life and death, you can shock the heavens with lightning. Speaking of this, Master Qian Lei looked at everyone again, then at the left side of the Great Thunder Palace. He smiled and said, "What happened to my Imperial Thunder Sect? There was actually a lightning Meng image?" Fairy Xian Hua smiled bitterly and said, "All right, Sect Master knows that the Myriad Thunder Valley disappeared. 30% of the arrays in my Thunder Mountain range were affected." Oh, damn it. Master Qian Lei was shocked. How could such a change happen when he was guarding the Myriad Thunder Valley? Why didn't he find any clues? It's not that he was helpless. Fairy Xian Hua sighed and was about to explain, but Reverend Lei Meng next to her said, "Sect Master, if it weren't for the destruction of the Myriad Thunder Valley, Sect Master wouldn't have come out of seclusion, right?" Which tilde Master Qian Lei snorted coldly and said, "Even if I can't come out of seclusion, I can't say that helplessness is meritorious. The influence of the Myriad Thunder Valley. That's not right. Previously, the Myriad Thunder Valley could affect the arrays in my Thunder Mountain range, but now..." Fairy Xian Hua saw that Master Qian Lei was also surprised and could only say, "Sect Master, please come into the Great Thunder Palace and let me report to you one by one. Let's go in." Master Qian Lei nodded, But he didn't forget to say, no matter what, we have to punish helplessness properly. However, after listening for a full hour, Master Chen Lei's expression changed several times, and he actually closed his eyes and didn't say anything. The entire Great Thunder Palace was abnormally quiet. Fairy Shen Hua looked at Master Chen Lei's somewhat gloomy face and felt nervous. Fairy Yarrow Feng, Reverend Lei Meng, and the others lowered their heads and looked at the ground of the Great Thunder Palace expressionlessly. After the time it takes to drink half a cup of tea, Master Chen Lei raised his head and opened his eyes. His two lightning-like eyes swept across the Great Thunder Palace, the many palace masters, and the many palace masters, whose faces were filled with fear. He opened his mouth and said sorrowfully, "Alas! My Dao sect, who fought for more than 10 years, was defeated in the end. My Imperial Thunder sect's disciple, who tried to rescue Sky Patrol City, was unable to escape the calamity. My Imperial Thunder sect, who was annihilated by the myriad thunder lightning, lost its golden soup. My Imperial Thunder sect, who lost its footing and was chased by the sky lightning." Fairy Shen Hua and the others lowered their heads and looked gloomy when they heard this. Lei Meng. Master Chen Lei didn't blame Fairy Shen Hua, but coldly looked at Reverend Lei Meng and said, "Why did you agree to expel Xiao Hua? Is it because you're afraid that the Heavenly Thunder Palace and Kanlei Palace will make things difficult for Xiao Hua?" "Yes." Hearing Master Chen Lei's question, Reverend Lei Meng raised his head and looked directly at Master Chen Lei. He answered without hesitation, "Xiao Hua fought a bloody battle in the Dao Sword War and protected my Imperial Thunder sect's first team from losing a single person. Later on, he joined the Assembly Hall's Special Task Force and once again made illustrious achievements in battle. Among sword cultivators, he was known as the terrifying phoenix that struck fear in people's hearts. However, it was because of a problem with the transmission of a message that thousands of aura-refining disciples besieged the myriad Thunder Valley. This was under the condition that Reverend Miu and Reverend Quangtian hadn't returned, and the tens of thousands of disciples hadn't returned. If they had returned, I wouldn't dare to rule out the possibility that these disciples might have misunderstood Xiao Hua. They weren't chi-refining disciples anymore. If someone challenged Xiao Hua in the Thunder Plains, where would he go? I've heard that flowers within the walls are fragrant outside the walls. I'm afraid this is the truth, right? Instead of letting Xiao Hua live in fear and danger in the Imperial Thunder Sect, it's better to let Xiao Hua leave my Imperial Thunder Sect. Perhaps he can live for a few more years." -11. Chapter 3061. Humph. Do you think the tens of thousands of disciples of my Imperial Thunder Sect are so unreasonable? Don't you know that this punishment order is just a temporary measure? Master Chen Lei said angrily. Reverend Lei Meng wasn't afraid. He knew that Master Chen Lei was angry at the palace masters of Chen Lei Palace and Kanlei Palace, not him. However, he still said bluntly, "Sect Master, everyone in the Great Thunder Palace knows that the punishment order is just a temporary measure. However, some people can't help but be jealous of Xiao Hua's achievements and the rise of the myriad Thunder Valley. The challenge of 1,800 Foundation Establishment disciples is really beyond my expectations. Can you say that there are no people with bad intentions behind this? Besides, Xiao Hua violated the sect law written by ancestor Chen Yun himself, and Fairy Shen Hua's punishment was also reasonable. Is there anything wrong with my secondment?" Alas, Master Chen Lei sighed, that sect law was written by ancestor Chen Yun, but it's no longer applicable. Why can't you break the old and create a new one? Expelling Xiao Hua like this will not only chill the hearts of the disciples who survived the war, but also damage my Imperial Thunder Sect Master. Fairy Shen Hua shook her head. "I don't agree with your word." "Oh." Master Chen Lei glanced at her and said indifferently, "Say it. It's important to break the old and create a new one, but it's even more important to uphold the strict rules of my Imperial Thunder Sect. Getting rid of a terrifying phoenix and expelling a Foundation Establishment disciple will make all the disciples understand the importance of abiding by the sect law. I think it's worth it. The surviving disciples, and even the tens of thousands of disciples who come back will respect the sect law even more. They won't be arrogant and affect the sect's usual rules." "Maybe so." Master Chen Lei was a bit annoyed. He felt pity for Xiao Hua. Not only did Xiao Hua enter the Imperial Thunder sect with the thunder-devouring bead, he also made a name for himself as a terrifying phoenix in the great battle of Dao and Sword. In the end, he even saved Qian Qinghua. It was really a pity that such a blessing was expelled just because the myriad Thunder Valley was gradually withdrawing from the Imperial Thunder sect's formation. However, the punishment of Fairy Xian Hua's group was quite reasonable. The founding ancestor of the Imperial Thunder School had indeed followed the rules, so Qian Leizi had nothing to say. At this moment, a palace guard came in and reported, Zhen Qing of the Jade Archive Hall and Zhuo Minghui of the 10,000 Thunder Valley would like to see you. They have an extremely important matter. Oh! Master Qian Leizi was slightly taken aback, but Fairy Xian Hua's heart skipped a beat as she inwardly calculated. Wasn't this the time when Xiao Hua was expelled from the Imperial Thunder sect, and the two of them flew from the Sky Thunder Peak to the Great Thunder Hall? When Fairy Xian Hua turned to look at Lei Meng Daoist was also puzzled. Let them in. Qian Leizi waved his hand. Yes, the palace guard answered. Not long after, Zhen Qing and Zhuo Minghui entered the Great Thunder Palace. Facing Qian Leizi, Zhuo Minghui trembled even more. She stood behind Zhen Qing and bowed respectfully. She did not dare to say anything. Zhen Qing, Zhuo Minghui, what's so important? Qian Leizi said calmly. Sect Master Zhen Qing gnashed her teeth, her face full of anger. Looking at the people on the praying mats, she asked word by word, Disciple wants to ask, who expelled Xiao Hua from the Imperial Thunder sect? Qian Leizi frowned and said indifferently, Zhen Qing, you are now the Vice Palace Master of the Jade Archive Hall. Why do you not know the severity of the matter? You actually came to the Great Thunder Hall to question your master. When Xiao Hua was expelled, didn't Zhuo Minghui say that she was also in the Great Thunder Hall? She didn't tell you. Disciple naturally heard Zhuo Minghui's words on the way here. However, Disciple wants to ask Sect Master. Zhen Qing became even more sorrowful as she asked solemnly, do you know the details of the matter? I know. Qian Leizi nodded. Although I have just come out of seclusion, I have already received the report. Expelling Xiao Hua was the collective decision of the Great Thunder Hall. If this old man was here, I would also do the same. Therefore, this old man also agreed with their decision. Of course, Xiao Hua is very pitiful. However, the rules of the sect cannot be changed. Although he is a terrifying phoenix, he still has to bear the responsibility for his mistakes. Zhen Qing sighed deeply, then said word by word, Disciple came to the Great Thunder Hall not only to investigate who expelled the terrifying phoenix from the Imperial Thunder sect, but also to ask, who was it that expelled our Imperial Thunder sect's mighty sword cultivator and Dawn Rain Continent's Nameless from the Imperial Thunder sect? Ah! What? Qian Leizi was greatly shocked. He instantly stood up from the praying mat and appeared in front of Zhen Qing in a flash. Lightning flashed around his body as he said hurriedly, You said. Xiao Hua. Xiao Hua is nameless. Hearing Qian Leizi's words, Fairy Xian Hua, Reverend Leizi and the others finally reacted. They were all moved and stood up, no longer able to sit calmly on the praying mat. That's right. Disciple came to the Great Thunder Hall precisely to report this extremely important news. Xiao Hua is nascent soul nameless. You expelled a nascent soul disciple who had cultivated the lightning escape art to the Imperial Thunder transformation realm. Zhen Qing was not afraid of the lightning flashing in Qian Leizi's eyes as she said word by word. How is this possible? Even Reverend Leizi walked down from the praying mat and said in shock, Xiao Hua is only a Foundation Establishment disciple. How do you know Xiao Hua is nameless? Qian Leizi stared at Zhen Qing without blinking and scolded, Why didn't you report this earlier? Disciple didn't know before. However, when Disciple delivered Xiao Hua's natal spirit tablet, I saw Xiao Hua fly away from the Sky Thunder Peak and use the Imperial Thunder transformation. Zhen Qing took a deep breath and said, Not only Disciple, but all the disciples on duty at the mountain gate saw it. All the disciples in the myriad Thunder Valley knew. Are you sure it was the Imperial Thunder transformation? Qian Leizi's expression changed greatly as he roared. If Disciple couldn't be sure, How could disciple dare to enter the Great Thunder Hall? Zhen Qing was not afraid at all as she stared at Chen Leizi and answered. Quick! Chen Leizi waved his hand and ordered, send all the disciples on duty back to the Great Thunder Hall. Don't miss a single one. Yes. Zhen Yunzi and Dui Jie heard and hurried out of the Great Thunder Hall. Also, bring all the disciples of the Myriad Thunder Valley to the Great Thunder Hall. Chen Leizi didn't forget to order again. Yes. Zhen Yunzi didn't understand, but he still answered. Chen Leizi let out a long breath and looked at the trembling Zhuo Minghui. Under Chen Leizi's aura, Zhuo Minghui's face turned pale. Minghui Chen Leizi asked pleasantly, did you know Xiao Hua was nameless? Disciple didn't know. Zhuo Minghui whispered, disciple only heard from third disciple Kui Hongshan that Xiao Hua should be the horrifying phoenix. As for whether he was nameless or not, disciple never thought about it and never asked. After all, he is only a Foundation Establishment disciple. How could he be a Foundation Establishment disciple? Chen Leizi was furious. He is your disciple and you didn't know. Disciple didn't know. Zhuo Minghui knelt down in fright. Xiao Hua's master is just a core condensation. How could Xiao Hua be a nascent soul? How could disciple know? Oh, Minghui, get up. Chen Leizi bitterly smiled and hurriedly helped Zhuo Minghui up, saying, I'm not blaming you. Yes, disciple knows. Disciple also didn't expect Xiao Hua to be nameless. Otherwise, Zhuo Minghui said pitifully. Otherwise what? She also didn't know what else. Since Xiao Hua is nameless, why didn't he say it before? Fairy Shen Hua whispered, if we knew he was nameless, how could we? Senior sister Shen Hua, don't forget. Reverend Leizi shook his head, you said it before, not to mention the horrifying phoenix, even if it was a nascent soul nameless, in front of the rules of the sect, we have to treat them equally. Did I say that? Fairy Shen Hua murmured. Reverend Leizi sighed. He really wanted to watch the show from the side, but this matter was really too serious. Expelling a nascent soul realm disciple, this was the biggest joke in the Dawn Rain continent. As a member of the Imperial Thunder sect, how could he dare to stay out of it? Minghui. Chen Leizi looked at the palace master whose face was full of surprise, as well as the hall masters whose faces were filled with fear and terror. Tell me everything that happened after Xiao Hua entered the Imperial Thunder sect. Yes, disciple understand. Zhuo Minghui thought for a moment and was about to speak. Don't be anxious. Chen Leizi turned around and sat on the praying mat. Looking at the hall masters, he said indifferently, all of you, leave. Before the Great Thunder Palace's order, no one can say half a word about today's matter. If anyone dares to say anything, I'll kill them without mercy. Yes, disciple understands. All the hall masters shrank back, knowing that Chen Leizi was really angry. Lowering their heads, they quietly left the Great Thunder Palace. Poor Zhuo Minghui, she really didn't know much about Xiao Hua. After talking for a while, Chen Leizi and the others still couldn't find any clues. However, it was clear that Xiao Hua's love and attachment to the Myriad Thunder Valley was real, which made Chen Leizi's heart move. He immediately interrupted Zhuo Minghui and said, Lei Meng, hurry up and go find Xiao Hua. You have some fate with him, and you're also the palace master of the Thunder Palace. He'll give you some face. Just say that I've already come out of seclusion and know that he was wronged, so I want to clear his name. Yes, disciple will go right away. Reverend Leizi hurriedly got up. Also, if he doesn't come back, or feels that he doesn't have any face, you'll accompany him. Wherever he goes, you'll follow. Just wait for my orders. Chen Leizi seemed to have thought of something and hurriedly ordered, I'll give him a lot of face. You must remember to let him know that my Imperial Thunder sect is his sect. Yes, disciple understands. Reverend Leizi didn't dare to be negligent. Xiao Hua's expulsion could be considered as him adding fuel to the fire. Thinking about a nascent soul who could suppress Lu Ruochang, a third-grade illusory sword expert, as soon as he appeared, even Reverend Leizi himself didn't dare to say that he could win against 10 third-grade illusory swordsmen. Such a powerful nascent soul, unexpectedly, flew away just like that. -11. Chapter 3062. Watching Reverend Lei Meng leave, Fairy Xianhua's heart was filled with mixed feelings. She regretted the way she handled things, but she also hated Xiaohua. He was clearly the terrifying phoenix and nameless. Why didn't he admit it? Since he could shake the sword tomb, why didn't he remind her when he returned to the Imperial Thunder Sect? Fairy Xianhua really didn't know why Xiaohua hid his cultivation. Qian Leizi was sitting cross-legged on the praying mat. He narrowed his eyes and seemed to be thinking about something. He said, "Zhen Qing, you tested Xiaohua's constitution when he entered the Imperial Thunder Sect. You said he had the hidden fire attribute. Then, are you sure he's a 10th level Qi refining disciple?" Sect Master. Seeing Qian Leizi value Xiaohua so much, Zhen Qing's anger subsided. She said in a low voice, "Yes. Disciple is sure Xiaohua is a Qi refining cultivator. Can't he be a golden core?" Qian Leizi asked. This. Zhen Qing smiled bitterly. Disciple only tested his constitution. Later on, I took him to the Feather Immortal Assembly. His performance during the Feather Immortal Assembly was merely at the standard of a Qi refinement disciple, and there was nothing strange about it. Of course, Disciple is also quite puzzled. Xiaohua was only a 10th level Qi refining cultivator, but now he's pregnant. This is simply impossible, unless he was a late-stage golden core when he entered the Imperial Thunder Sect. Otherwise, it's impossible for him to be pregnant in just a few decades. If he was already a late-stage golden core, how could he be a loose cultivator? Fairy Xianhua said coldly, "Then why did we suspect the origin of Qian Qing's thunder-devouring bead? Isn't there a reasonable explanation?" Qian Leizi naturally thought of this. He sucked in a breath of cold air and almost jumped up again. Yes, if Xiaohua was already a late-stage golden core when he entered the Imperial Thunder Sect, then his scheme was not small. Moreover, Xiaohua's scheme didn't start from when he entered the Imperial Thunder Sect. It was even before Qian Qinghua got the thunder-devouring bead. That thunder-devouring bead might be Xiaohua's doing. This clearly explained why the lightning in the Myriad Thunder Valley disappeared. It was Xiaohua who pushed the Imperial Thunder Sect to replace the original lightning pool with the thunder-devouring bead. Sect Master. Zhuo Minghui gathered her courage and said in a low voice, "Disciple. Disciple can be sure that Xiaohua is definitely not a late-stage gold core cultivator." Oh! Master Qian Lei was surprised. Why? Because when he entered the Imperial Thunder Sect, he didn't have divine sense. His divine sense was only born when he had no choice but to find the jade Chiline fruit. Zhuo Minghui clenched her teeth and said, "Moreover, his knowledge. Wait a minute, it's definitely Qi refinement. He doesn't know anything about the Dawn Rain continent." Fairy Xianhua coldly said, "It's too easy for a late-stage golden core cultivator to deceive all of you." Zhen Qing shook her head. Disciple disagrees with martial uncle Xianhua's word. It was possible for him to conceal his cultivation from the late Aurus core stage to the early Aurus core stage, or even the late Foundation establishment stage. It's absolutely impossible to hide it to the Qi refining stage. Yes, Junior can be sure that Xiaohua's meridians are definitely filled with true Qi. Zhuo Minghui once again mustered up her courage and said, "Yes, it would be fine if it was true essence, but it just had to be true Qi." Even if Master Qian Lei, a late-stage nascent soul cultivator, was disguised as a Qi refinement cultivator, it was still impossible, right? Then there's only one possibility, Master Qian Lei said indifferently. Wu Ming isn't a nascent soul cultivator, he's probably just a golden core cultivator. In the Sword Tomb, he was just a core condensation cultivator. It's just that. Wu Ming's core condensation cultivator's momentum is too great. It's close to that of a nascent soul cultivator. But, what kind of core condensation cultivator can be close to that of a nascent soul cultivator? This seems even more impossible, right? Fairy Xianhua was somewhat dumbfounded. This possibility is more likely than Xiaohua being a late-stage golden core cultivator when he entered the Imperial Thunder Sect. Master Qian Lei said in a low voice, "Otherwise, my Imperial Thunder Sect will be in danger." That's right. If Xiaohua deliberately made things difficult for the Imperial Thunder Sect, then he must have done something to the thunder-devouring bead. At this time, most of the Imperial Thunder Sect's protective array in the thunder-devouring bead had been activated by the thunder-devouring bead. Perhaps Xiao Hua could break the Imperial Thunder Sect's protective array with a raise of his hand, right? While they were talking, all the disciples of the Myriad Thunder Valley, including Zhen Quan and the others, arrived at the Great Thunder Hall. Among the third-generation disciples, except for Xiong Zhili who was calm and collected, Zhen Quan and the others were trembling with pale faces and gathered at the back. Xiong Yang, Kui Hongshan, and Dui Chiming had come to the Great Thunder Hall, so they were still normal, but Yang Qinglian couldn't. Just like Shui Minghui, she lowered her head and didn't dare to say a word. Wu Qing, on the other hand, looked around with indifferent eyes and only followed behind Kui Hongshan with a calm expression. Master Chen Lei glanced around and saw everyone's reaction clearly. Xiong Zhili and Wu Qing's calmness surprised him slightly. After all, they were just aura-refining disciples in an environment where nascent soul cultivators often appeared. How could they not be disturbed by the solemn atmosphere? Even golden core cultivators would have the same reaction as Zhuo Minghui and Yang Qinglian, so how could two aura-refining disciples not be afraid? Xiong Yang. Fairy Shen Hua said, "You must have seen Xiao Hua when you saw him off. Do you think his Wu Ming?" "Yes." Xiong Yang nodded. Disciple didn't know before, but after seeing Xiao Hua's thunder evasion technique and martial uncle Zhen Qing's affirmation, Disciple thinks Wu Ming must be Xiao Hua. But Fairy Shen Hua asked again, "Don't you think it's strange? Xiao Hua just entered the Imperial Thunder Sect and was only a 10th layer aura refining disciple, but in just a few decades, he actually surpassed you, your master, and even Zhen Qing and reached the nascent soul realm. It's not strange." Xiong Yang answered honestly. As long as it's Xiao Hua, Disciple doesn't find it strange. Oh, why? Hearing that Xiao Hua was a nascent soul cultivator wasn't strange, but Master Chen Lei found it strange. Okay, Sect Master knows Tilda. Seeing that Xiao Hua had already used the Imperial Thunder transformation, Xiong Yang knew he didn't intend to hide his cultivation level, so he told him everything he knew and saw. "What? You got the inner cores of the male and female lightning beasts?" Master Chen Lei was dumbfounded. You both took them?" "Okay, Sect Master knows." Xiong Yang nodded. Xiao Hua didn't hide anything, most of it was given to the disciples of the Myriad Thunder Valley. Disciple's lifespan was extended because he replenished his Dao foundation. Then no wonder Xiong Zhili and Wu Qing's aptitudes are heaven-defying. Master Chen Lei sighed. This kind of luck, this kind of innate talent, was definitely not something others could reach. Kui Hongshan. Fairy Shen Hua asked again, "What do you think?" "Ari," Kui Hongshan sighed. "If Xiao Hua is Wu Ming, Disciple wouldn't be surprised at all. If it weren't for him, my Imperial Thunder Sect's first team would have died in the Dao Sword War, whether it was Chicken Crow Mountain or Golden Spring Mountain." At this point, Master Chen Lei's face suddenly changed, and he said in a deep voice, "The third-generation disciples of the Myriad Thunder Valley, leave." "Yes." Xiong Zhili and the others were stunned, then turned to leave. "Xiong Zhili, stay." Master Chen Lei said again. "Yes." Xiong Zhili stopped again, and Zhen Quan and the others quickly left. "Kui Hongshan, this old man wants to ask you." "Golden Spring Mountain, Tu Hong?" Master Chen Lei asked tentatively. Fairy Shen Hua and the others suddenly came to a realization. That's right, if Xiao Hua is nameless, then killing Tu Hong would be a piece of cake. This. Kui Hongshan hesitated. Xiao Hua didn't tell Disciple, and Disciple didn't dare to ask. However, Disciple and Chimeng took the Thunder Beast's inner core in Sky Patrol City. Master Chen Lei looked at Fairy Shen Hua. Neither of them spoke, but they both understood. For Kui Hongshan and Dui Chimeng, Xiao Hua even killed Tu Hong of Sky Patrol City in front of Xueyu's immortal. Fortunately, Master Chen Lei felt lucky. Sky Patrol City has already fallen into the hands of sword cultivators, and Xueyu's immortal has already died. But then, Master Chen Lei laughed secretly. That day, Xueyu's immortal couldn't do anything to Xiao Hua, and now, Xiao Hua's immortal is beyond Xueyu's reach. Shui Yu's Imperial Thunder transformation alone is not something Shui Yu can catch up with. In addition, Sect Master, when Xiao Hua just joined our Imperial Thunder sect, he came here. I don't think he's a late-stage gold core realm cultivator. Lei Ting interrupted. Indeed. That day, I also checked it a little. Xiao Hua should be a qi refining disciple. So, Xiao Hua is indeed Wu Ming. Master Qian Lei nodded, and when he just joined our Imperial Thunder sect, he was indeed a qi refining disciple. However, his magic power is profound, and is comparable to a nascent soul realm cultivator when he's just a core condensation realm cultivator. Fairy Xian Hua, Fairy Yarofeng, Lei Ting, and Zhen Yunzi's faces changed slightly. If such a fierce person was pregnant, wouldn't he be comparable to a spirit-severing stage cultivator? What if he was distracted? They didn't dare to imagine. Yes, disciple also thinks so. Kui Hongshan didn't intend to hide it, and he said everything he could. Come here. After Kui Hongshan finished speaking, Master Qian Lei pointed at him. Yes. Sect Master. Xiong Zhili quickly walked in front of Master Qian Lei. Wang tilde Master Qian Lei's body flashed with lightning. As he stretched out his right index finger, a cyan lightning rushed into Xiong Zhili's body. Xiong Zhili didn't even have time to react and immediately fainted. Master Qian Lei waved his hand, and Xiong Zhili's body floated up. Master Qian Lei's hand flashed with lightning and solemnly pointed at Xiong Zhili's lower dantian. His eyes slowly closed, but after a moment, Master Qian Lei opened his eyes again. He waved his hand, and the lightning around Xiong Zhili's body disappeared. He slowly opened his eyes, and they were filled with confusion. Do you know what Xiao Hua did to you? Master Qian Lei asked faintly. I know. Xiong Zhili nodded. This junior once asked my adoptive father for the lightning guiding technique. Master Qian Lei looked at everyone and asked, who else? Disciple Wu Qing answered faintly. Also canine girl. Dui Chimeng didn't dare to hide and quickly said. Kui Yingying was still hiding in her mother's arms, and she didn't even dare to show her face. -11. Chapter 3063. All right, said Master Qian Lei, nodding. He waved his hand, causing Xiong Zhili to land on the ground. However, seeing that Reverend Lei Tan was not seated, he asked, did Reverend Lei Tan personally instruct Xiong Zhili? Yes, Xiong Yang said anxiously, the palace lord did say that, but my son's cultivation level is still at the aura refinement realm. He hasn't given him any guidance yet. Yes, let him guide me personally in the future. Qian Lei nodded, then looked at Fairy Wanfeng and said, Junior Sister Wanfeng, I'll leave this little girl to you. Oh! Fairy Yarofeng was taken aback, but she immediately recovered and nodded. This subordinate obeys. Wu Qing. Master Qian Lei said. Yes, Sect Master. Wu Qing's expression was still indifferent. From now on, I will personally guide your cultivation. Qian Lei said with a smile, what do you think? All right, thank you, Sect Master. Wu Qing actually didn't have the slightest trace of surprise, and only replied softly. Haha, Qian Lei smiled. He looked around and showed a rare kindness. The Valley of 10,000 Thunders has been destroyed by thousands of thunders. It no longer has any value. However, your myriad Thunder Valley's lineage will still continue, just like before. This sect will give you a larger area so that you can recruit more disciples. I hope that when Xiao Hua returns to the sect in the future, he will be able to see the difference in all of you. Zhuo Minghui and the others were pleasantly surprised. They could hardly believe their ears and thanked him in unison. All right, you can go back and wait, Master Qian Lei said with a smile. However, when that bastard comes out of seclusion, tell him to come to Giant Thunder Hall to see me. Ari, this sect is also stupid. Nameless, helpless, emotionless, isn't Xiao Hua clearly nameless? Yes, but I've already begun to condense my Dan. It's just before the sect leader comes out of seclusion. I'm afraid he'll come out of seclusion very soon. Zhuo Minghui had some courage and hurriedly said. I reckon that he was also affected by the fluctuations of the Myriad Thunder Valley's Myriad Thunder annihilation. That's why he condensed his core. Master Chen Lazy nodded, but then he rolled his eyes and asked, by the way, does Xiao Hua have a good partner in the sect? Zhuo Minghui replied, yes, Xue Xue and Zun Shu of Zun Lei Palace. If it wasn't for some misunderstanding, this disciple intended to propose marriage to Zun Lei Palace very soon. Zhuo Minghui actually pulled the supporting female lead out of thin air. This was truly out of Yang Qinglian and the rest's expectations. Even Dui Chimeng couldn't help but glance at Zhuo Minghui. She didn't know what her master's wife was thinking. Oh, there are 2 female cultivators. Chen Lazy laughed. Reporting to sect master, Cai Hongxia of the Huanhua sect should also be one. Kui Hongshan hurriedly said. Oh. Master Chen Lei raised his eyebrows and glanced at Fairy Shenhua. Of course, Huanhua sect and Imperial Thunder sect were competitors. That's right. Zhen Qing suddenly smiled and said, back then at the Feather Immortal Gathering, as he spoke, he recounted how Fairy Hongxia had betrayed him. Hearing this, Chen Leizi's heart calmed down a bit. However, he couldn't guarantee that Xiao Hua wasn't acting. All right, Zhen Qing, you can go back. Chen Leizi says with a smile, as for Xiao Hua's matter, this sect will make arrangement. Even if the expulsion order won't be revoked immediately, this sect will still satisfy you. Many thanks, Sect Master. The people of the Myriad Thunder Valley express their thanks again and leave the Great Thunder Hall with Zhen Qing. After Zhen Qing flew away, Zhuo Minghui looked at the somewhat gloomy sky outside the Great Thunder Hall and felt as if she had just woken up from a dream. What she experienced today was really too strange. Although her second disciple was expelled from the Imperial Thunder sect, which really made her sad, her second disciple brought her too many surprises. Yuanying Wu Ming. He was a disciple of the Imperial Thunder sect whose reputation was comparable to Chen Leizi's. Everyone knew that after the war, Wu Ming would definitely be put in an important position. As long as Wu Ming opened his mouth, there would definitely be no problem with the position of any Thunder Palace Master. Unfortunately, this person had already gone and was no longer in the Imperial Thunder sect. However, it was really because Wu Ming went that the Myriad Thunder Valley received so many benefit. Not to mention other things, just thinking about Xiong Zhili, Wu Qing, and Kui Yingying being taught by the 3 Thunder Palace Masters, their future was incomparably brilliant. What was all this for? It was all because of Xiao Hua's attachment to the Myriad Thunder Valley. The Imperial Thunder sect wanted Xiao Hua to see their sincerity. Even if Xiao Hua didn't return to the Imperial Thunder sect, as long as the Myriad Thunder Valley received good treatment, when the Imperial Thunder sect needed Xiao Hua, would Xiao Hua not appear? At least, this cultivator who was the number 1 in any realm wouldn't make things difficult for the Imperial Thunder sect, right? Let's go, we'll wait and see your master condense his core. Zhuo Minghui smiled. This old thing was actually surpassed by his good-for-nothing disciple. When he finds out, I don't know how embarrassed he will be. Hey tilde don't tell master. Kui Hongshan also smiled. Everyone knew that although Xiao Hua had left the Imperial Thunder sect, his return was inevitable, and very soon. Unfortunately, in this world, there were never things that ordinary people could predict. Not only did Xiao Hua not return soon, when he would return, the situation when he returned, even in their dreams, they couldn't imagine it. If Zhuo Minghui and the others could think of it, how could Fairy Shenhua not think of it? After the people of the Myriad Thunder Valley left, she sighed and asked in a low voice, Sect Master, are you trying to let Xiao Hua see the sincerity of our Imperial Thunder sect towards him? Do you think this subordinate handled it incorrectly? Hehe, junior sister Shenhua, you think too much. Chen Lazy smiled and said, you handled it correctly. Just now, this old man said in front of Zhen Qing that no matter what decision the Great Thunder Palace makes, our sect will agree. However, since Xiao Hua is Wu Ming, this name is too big. Our Imperial Thunder sect can't be too cautious. Chen Lazy said again, besides, these 3 children have Xiao Hua's cultivation, and also have the inner cores of the male and female lightning beasts. If they don't condense their cores in the future, then it's fine, but as long as they condense their cores, their divine abilities will be endless. Children with this kind of aptitude are worthy of being personally taught by the masters of the 3 great lightning palaces. Moreover, with these 3 children that Xiao Hua loves dearly, he definitely won't make things difficult for our Imperial Thunder Sect, and he definitely won't hold a grudge against us. Fairy Shen Feng said indifferently. Grudge, he shouldn't. Qian Lazy shook his head and said, it seems that Xiao Hua is a person who clearly distinguishes between gratitude and grudges. He thinks that he has to bear the responsibility of the myriad Thunder Valley, otherwise, he would have already caused trouble. With his Imperial Thunder Transformation's lightning escape technique, you all simply can't do anything to him. This subordinate doesn't dare to agree. Fairy Shen Hua shook her head and refuted. He, in front of the Snow Region's Daoist Master, he dares to. Qian Lazy said half a sentence and didn't point it out. If it weren't for his misgivings about implicating the myriad Thunder Valley, perhaps he would have already taken action. Therefore, we must capture the myriad Thunder Valley. Alas, it's a pity. If only this sect had come out of seclusion half a day earlier. It's all because our Imperial Thunder Sect's luck is bad. At this time, we still need to think carefully, how can we not? Just at this moment, lightning flashed above the Great Thunder Hall again. Junior brother Miu. Fairy Shen Hua was overjoyed upon seeing this. The restrictions of the Great Thunder Palace have just been changed. Apart from the disciples of our Imperial Thunder Sect, no one else can enter. Good. Qian Lazy was also worried and hurriedly waved his sleeve. Lightning flashed, and a square mirror appeared in midair. On the mirror was Daoist Miu's depressed face. Oh! Sect Master has come out of seclusion. Congratulations on stepping into the late stage of nascent soul realm. Seeing Qian Lazy, Daoist Miu was stunned. She first congratulated him and then bowed. This subordinate has failed in leading the troops and brought shame to our Imperial Thunder Sect. Sect Master, please punish me. No matter. Qian Lazy waved his hand and said, who can be undefeated in life? Even the 3 countries of our Dao sect were defeated. What's so strange about you? But, where are you? Where are the other disciples? Alas, this disciple has already come out of the Sky Patrol City. Daoist Miu smiled bitterly. However, junior brother Quangtian and most of the Imperial Thunder Sect disciples are still in the Sky Patrol City. Do sword cultivators need spirit stones or elixirs? Qian Lazy didn't find it strange and nodded. This disciple has a sword slip with the requirements of sword cultivators recorded in it. Daoist Miu replied, only if our Imperial Thunder Sect agrees to the conditions inside can our disciples return from the Sky Patrol City. Good tilde, no problem. Qian Lazy waved his hand. To be able to let tens of thousands of disciples return, our Imperial Thunder Sect will go bankrupt to satisfy them. In addition, Daoist Miu thought for a moment and looked to the left and said in a low voice, this disciple has a shocking news to report to Sect Master. Say it. Qian Lazy naturally didn't panic and said very calmly, this disciple already knows who John Doe is. Daoist Miu said, this Sect Master also knows. John Doe is Xiao Hua. Terrifying Phoenix and John Doe are actually the same person. Qian Lazy smiled faintly. Oh! Sect Master. Daoist Miu said curiously. This disciple and Daoist Quangtian searched for clues but couldn't find anything. Xiao Hua revealed himself. Qian Lazy replied. How is that possible? Daoist Miu was shocked and said anxiously, where is that guy? Sect Master, quickly capture him. This guy's scheme is not small. Ah! Qian Lazy's expression changed and said anxiously, what do you know? By the way, didn't you and Quangtian search for him to no avail? How do you know that Xiao Hua is John Doe? It was Sword Xiu who told me. Daoist Miu's words made Qian Lazy break out in cold sweat. This Xiao Hua is not only an early-stage nascent soul cultivator, but also a sword transformation cultivator. He is also related to millions of soul cultivators in Meng Mountain. Sword Xiu suspects that he is a soul cultivator. Ah! Qian Lazy stood up from the futon and asked, what else? Nothing else. Daoist Miu said nervously, Xiao Hua is currently in Imperial Thunder Sect. Sect Master, please capture him immediately and interrogate him. You don't have to worry about this. Qian Lazy said faintly, Xiao Hua is no longer in Imperial Thunder Sect. Oh! Daoist Miu didn't understand. Don't ask anything, don't say anything. Chen Lazy ordered, on your way back, ask for more information about Xiao Hua. This sect will send Lei Tingzi to Sky Patrol City to discuss the return of Imperial Thunder Sect's disciples. Yes, this disciple understands. Daoist mi you didn't dare to ask anymore and turned off the communication. -11. Chapter 3064. Damn it. This Xiao Hua. Master Chen Lei didn't sit down and just stood there, his brows furrowed. It's fine if he's nameless, but how can he have a sword transformation cultivation base? If he's a sword cultivator, how can he kill so many swordsmen? Unless he's a soul cultivator? Xiao Hua is actually a soul cultivator. Isn't this too inconceivable? For a moment, the entire Great Thunder Palace was silent again. Xiao Hua being nameless was shocking enough. Xiao Hua being a soul cultivator was absolutely unbelievable. It made people feel that there was nothing real in this world. After a while, Master Chen Lei asked, "What's going on with Xiao Hua going to Million Mountain?" Fairy Shen Hua hesitated and said, "It said that after the first stage of the Dao Sword battle, Xiao Hua went with the first team of the Great Thunder Palace to train. As for where he went, it seems to be Huan Country. If junior brother Miu is right, then it's Million Mountain, and junior brother Quangtian received a message from Xiao Hua. It should also be from Million Mountain." "Yen, that's enough." Master Chen Lei nodded. "Whether Xiao Hua is a soul cultivator or not, he still has my Imperial Thunder Sect in his heart, and he still sent the correct message to my Imperial Thunder Sect. Moreover, whether Xiao Hua is a soul cultivator or a swordsman, doesn't Li Zongbao know? Doesn't Xiao Maro know? Especially these two people. They'd followed Xiao Hua during the first phase of the battle, and they'd killed countless sword cultivators and obtained an extremely great amount of merit. If they'd noticed the slightest trace of uneasiness, they would have probably notified their seniors a long time ago, right? Xiao Hua and the other three crossed Huan Country and went straight to Million Mountain. I'm afraid they killed a lot of Huan Country's sword cultivators. This is Huan Country's plan to sow discord. Cough cough tilde Fairy Shen Hua whispered, "Sect Master, don't forget Tu Hong." "So what?" Master Chen Lei sneered, "Changbai Sect's disciples can have sword energy, but my Imperial Thunder Sect's disciples can't. That's a sword transformation." Fairy Shen Hua smiled bitterly. "A sword that can break 10,000 techniques. How can an ordinary Dao Sect's disciple cultivate it? Alas, is Xiao Hua a friend or a foe? It's still so confusing." Even Chen Lei scratched his head in the face of such a mysterious Xiao Hua. But the sword cultivators have already revealed the fact that Xiao Hua is nameless to Miu. Their next step will be to let the other cultivation sects know. Zhen Yunzi said with some distress, "What should we do?" Yes, after the war, someone must have come looking for Xiao Hua. Dui Jie also smiled bitterly, but this John Doe was actually driven away by us. At the very least, my colossal Thunder Hall has this command. This can't be taken back. He tilde Chen Lazy sneered, "Xiao Hua is the horrifying phoenix, but Xiao Hua is not nameless. Nameless is nameless. If you have a name, how can you still be nameless?" Sect Master means. Fairy Shen Hua's eyes lit up as she asked, "We don't recognize Xiao Hua as Wuming at all? When did Xiao Hua say that he is nameless? If he doesn't admit it, how would my Imperial Thunder Sect know?" Chen Lazy nodded, "Moreover, nameless is my Imperial Thunder Sect's nameless. Only my Imperial Thunder Sect's disciples are nameless. Unless Xiao Hua comes to my Sky Thunder Peak and claims that he is nameless, how would I know that he is nameless? But if Xiao Hua returns to Sky Thunder Peak, whether he is nameless or not, what difference does it make?" Fairy Shen Hua said with a smile. "Yes, let's see junior brother Lei Meng's luck." Chen Lei looked into the distance. If he catches up with Xiao Hua and successfully invites him back to the Imperial Thunder Sect, then nameless will be Xiao Hua. Otherwise, it will be the sword cultivator's plan to drive a wedge between us. Xiao Hua is not nameless. Then Sect Master hopes that senior brother Lei Meng's luck will be good. Or that he will be unlucky? Fairy Yarrow Feng asked with interest. Qian Leizi shook his head slightly. I don't know. I hope that he will be lucky, but I'm also afraid that he will find a soul cultivator that I can't control. It will bring immeasurable consequences to my Imperial Thunder Sect. Of course, in my opinion, how could those sword cultivators have any good intentions? Why would they tell my Imperial Thunder Sect about this for no reason? They must have suffered a great loss from Xiao Hua and lost control of the situation. That's why they led the disaster to my Imperial Thunder Sect or the Dao Sect to deal with Xiao Hua. Hehe, is my Imperial Thunder Sect so stupid? Xiao Hua is someone that even a group of sword cultivators can't deal with, so how can my Imperial Thunder Sect deal with him? At this point, Qian Leizi stood up and ordered, prepare to compensate the sword cultivators. When MIU comes back, bring my Imperial Thunder Sect disciples back as soon as possible. I'm going to take a look at the thunder-devouring bead now. I hope that Chen Qinghua won't bring about unbearable consequences to my Imperial Thunder Sect. Following Qian Leizi's departure, Fairy Shenhua and the others also dispersed, and the Great Thunder Hall also became quiet. In just a day's time, everything that happened in the Great Thunder Hall was like a torrent flowing down from a high mountain. After hundreds of twists and turns, no one knew the true direction. They only knew that everything seemed to be pushed by an invisible hand from top to bottom, heading straight to a single destination. Xiao Hua didn't know that so many unforeseen events had happened in the Great Thunder Hall. He only flew far away with tears in his eyes, and that mournful mood gradually calmed down. Looking at the endless sky, he took a deep breath and laughed self-deprecatingly. Alas, this Xiao is already several decades old. People often say that men don't easily shed tears. How can this Xiao be so easily sad? Other cultivators all have hearts of stone the more they cultivate, but this Xiao's heart is so soft. Is it just being expelled from the Imperial Thunder Sect? The one who suffered losses is the Imperial Thunder Sect, not this Xiao. Moreover, if I miss Master, I can go to the Imperial Thunder Sect to visit. Isn't that so? Wait until this Xiao's nameless identity is gradually revealed. Presumably, when this Xiao goes to the Imperial Thunder Sect, Qian Leizi won't stop this Xiao from entering, right? Forget it. Now that I've escaped from the Imperial Thunder Sect, this Dawn Rain continent is so big, where can this Xiao not go? It's a pity that Xue Xue and Hong Xia have to suffer. If this Xiao doesn't make a big name for himself, it won't be easy for me to go to the Thunder Palace and the Washing Flower Sect to ask for their hand in marriage, right? With this Xiao's current cultivation. I'm afraid this Xiao is really a rogue cultivator with the highest cultivation. What's so difficult about establishing a sect? Fortune Gate. Perhaps now is the time to start on this matter. Second senior brother was able to establish the Heavenly Demon Sect. Of course, he planned for hundreds or even thousands of years. But this Xiao's reputation as Daoist Master Xiao is not for nothing. This Xiao doesn't believe that my Fortune Gate is any worse than his Heavenly Demon Sect. Thinking of Zhong Qingxiao, Xiao Hua naturally thought of Xiao Shenrue and Jiang Liuer. When he entered the space and saw that Jiang Liuer was still fine, he knew that this was not the time to go to Yellow Flower Ridge. Moreover, now that the Dao Sword battle was over, Hanju must have returned from the Sky Patrol City. If he did not die in the Sky Patrol City, then the matter of the Buddhist sect's ruins would be Xiao Hua's first priority. The journey from the Imperial Thunder Sect in the country of Shi to the Kunlun Sect in the Ripple country was not short. If he rushed over now, he might just meet Hanju returning from the battle in the Sky Patrol City. Thus, Xiao Hua sorted out his mood and flew towards the Ripple country. Behind Xiao Hua, in the air thousands of miles away from the Imperial Thunder Sect, Shan Zizi from the Immortal Ascension Sect and Daoist Master Du Yi from the Immortal Music Sect were flying together towards the Sky Thunder Peak. Their speed was not fast, but it was definitely not slow either. However, they deliberately concealed their whereabouts. Ordinary cultivators would only see them as cultivators in the late Foundation establishment realm. Daoist Master Du Yi. Shan Zizi released his divine sense and roughly looked around. He whispered, "The Imperial Thunder Sect is just ahead. Should we follow the previous plan? Let's send a message to the Imperial Thunder Sect. Fellow Daoist. He tilde Daoist Shan Zizi, if not, do you have a better idea?" Daoist Master Du Yi smiled and asked. Shan Zizi was not polite. He nodded and said, yes, I've thought about it during this time. I feel that it's not the best plan if we wait outside the Imperial Thunder Sect. Oh, why? Daoist Master Du Yi raised his eyebrows and asked curiously, didn't we agree before? We can't attract the attention of the Imperial Thunder Sect and let Chen Lazy and the others know about it. Daoist Master Du Yi. Shan Zizi shook his head and said, think about it. Xiao Hua is the hero of the great battle of Dao Sword. Once he returns to the Imperial Thunder Sect, won't he be praised by everyone? Won't he be followed by others wherever he goes? Moreover, after the great battle of Dao Sword, he has been training in the Huan country. When he returns to the Imperial Thunder Sect, the biggest possibility is to cultivate in seclusion. This seclusion. Who knows how long it will take? Previously, we said that it's easy to wait here, but in fact, is it that simple? Don't forget that Xiao Hua has cultivated from a small itinerant cultivator to the nascent soul stage in just a few years. If we give him a few more years, I'm afraid that you and I won't be his opponent even if we join forces. Daoist Master Du Yi took a breath of cold air. He seemed to have thought of something. He turned to look at Shan Zizi and said in disbelief, could it be? Shan Zizi hurriedly stretched out his index finger and put it on his mouth. He narrowed his eyes and said, Daoist Master Du Yi, be careful with your words, be careful with your word. Daoist Master Du Yi immediately came to his senses. He hurriedly shut his mouth, thought for a moment, and asked, what do you think? Although the array of the Imperial Thunder Sect is powerful, it doesn't necessarily have no flaws. We may be able to find it if we join forces, even. If possible, let a familiar Daoist in the Imperial Thunder Sect take us in. Shan Zizi said with a smile, in this way, you and I can complete the heavy responsibility of the sect earlier, right? Yes, let's do as you say. Daoist Master Du Yi nodded, you and I will part ways here and do our own things. When we figure out the situation, we will make a specific plan. As the saying goes, plans can't keep up with changes. Daoist Master Du Yi and Shan Zizi really understood the power of these words. However, in just an hour, the two of them met in another place with extremely shocked expressions. Seeing that the other party was as stunned as them, the two of them almost laughed at the same time. -11. Chapter 3065. Ha 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 tilde perfected Du Yi laughed loudly. He really didn't know what to say. After suppressing his laughter for a long time, he panted and said, in my early years, I've heard stories about buying the casket and returning the pearl. Oh, there's also stories about Lord Yi's love for dragons. I always felt that those stupid things were just stories made up by the secular world to warn the youngsters. However, I've never thought that there's really such a stupid person in this world. Sigh, that's right. It seems that, in my impression, no nascent soul disciple has been expelled from the sect. Shan Shengzi also hid his smile and said, this Imperial Thunder Sect claims to be a famous sect in Xi country, but it's actually so. How should I describe it? Is it arrogant? Is it strict sect rules? It doesn't seem appropriate. Fellow Daoist Shan Shengzi. Perfected Du Yi pointed in the direction of Xiao Hua's flight and said, why don't you and I chase while we talk? This is our good luck. As soon as we arrived here, we found out that Xiao Hua was expelled from the Imperial Thunder Sect. Now he's just a rogue cultivator. No matter how we deal with Xiao Hua, all the sects on Xiaoyu continent will no longer have any objections. We don't have to be as careful of our whereabouts as before. Hehe, that's right. Shan Shengzi followed Perfected Du Yi and activated his Dharma powers. As they were in the territory of the Imperial Thunder Sect, Seng Huahong was not there. Shan Shengzi came to a realization and whispered, oh right, I know how to describe the Imperial Thunder Sect. Oh, fellow Daoist, please speak. Perfected Du Yi smiled and asked. Bad luck. Shan Shengzi laughed. Think about it, the information that Xiao Hua sent was obviously correct. That Sky Patrol City was the fundamental goal of the sword cultivators. However, the Dao sect didn't think so. Although they made plans, They probably didn't want to put in all their forces. That Imperial Thunder Sect disciple stationed himself in Sky Patrol City according to Xiao Hua's information. Originally, he wanted to obtain military merits, but he didn't expect the sword cultivators to be so fierce. Tens of thousands of disciples were killed in an instant. That's right, perfected Dewey nodded. The Imperial Thunder Sect was afraid that the disciples' hearts would be unstable, so they wanted to draw everyone's attention to the so-called terrifying phoenix. Who would have thought that Xiao Hua was different from before? He didn't put the Qi refinement and foundation establishment disciples in his eyes. This caused the Imperial Thunder Sect to be furious and expel Xiao Hua from the Imperial Thunder Sect. Perhaps in the eyes of the Imperial Thunder Sect, I'm a model for governing the sect according to the sect's rules, having the demeanor of a great sect. But they didn't expect that. This Xiao Hua isn't just a terrifying phoenix, he's also a nameless nascent soul cultivator. Shan Shengzi continued to discuss. At this time, the Imperial Thunder Sect still doesn't know that Xiao Hua is Yuanying Wu Ming. He was probably still feeling proud of himself. There weren't many sects that could expel a hero of the Great War of Dao and sword out of their sect just to uphold the rules of the sect. The Imperial Thunder Sect could now answer to Miu Daoist and Quang Tian, who were trapped in Sky Patrol City. They could also appease the anger of the tens of thousands of disciples. However, when they know that Xiao Hua is John Doe, then, what kind of expression will they have? Ha ha ha, it must be the expression of shooting yourself in the foot. What else could it be? Immortal Dewey laughed, but I believe that Qian Lazy of the Thunder Controlling Sect will never admit that Xiao Hua is John Doe. This John Doe. I'm afraid he'll never appear on Dawn Rain Continent again. Hehe, that's right. Not only John Doe, even Xiao Hua, will also disappear. Shan Shengzi sneered, Xiao Hua's story and John Doe's story will be drowned in time. In less than 100 years, they will be forgotten by everyone. Well, we still have to guard against Qian Lazy. This guy actually rushed to the late stage of Yuanying realm all of a sudden. The power of the sects in the country of Shi will change again. Moreover, the Imperial Thunder Sect will definitely secretly contact Xiao Hua, and even immediately send disciples to find Xiao Hua. Immortal Dewey thought for a moment and said, after all, Xiao Hua came from the Thunder Palace and the 10,000 Thunder Valley, so he has feelings for the Imperial Thunder Sect. If they collude to create a story of a prodigal son turning over a new leaf, it's absolutely possible. That's right. Shan Shengzi came to a realization. He activated the spiritual power in his body and said anxiously, we don't have to worry about anything, let's go. Okay, Immortal Dewey also echoed, but suddenly he asked again, by the way, Daoist Shan Shengzi, I want to ask you, did you find out what wrong Xiao Hua did in the Imperial Thunder Sect? If it's just some Qi refinement by lightning or a foundation establishment gambling, I'm afraid it's nothing serious, right? Sorry, I didn't ask. Shan Shengzi's body was already flashing with brilliance. He said, I'm afraid it's related to the secret of the Imperial Thunder Sect. And it's definitely not small. It's said that the entire Imperial Thunder Sect's great array had some changes before. After he finished speaking, Shan Shengzi had already turned into a rainbow and rushed into the distance. Immortal Dewey didn't dare to be negligent and also chased after him. Not long after the two Yuanying realm cultivators flew away, another rainbow rushed out from the Sky Thunder Peak in the same direction. It was the Palace Master of the Thunder Palace, Immortal Lei Meng. Poor Xiao Hua, just after he was expelled from the Imperial Thunder Sect, there were two middle-stage Yuanying realm cultivators chasing after him, wanting to capture him. He didn't expect the Imperial Thunder Sect to go back on their word so quickly. The goodwill they threw to him was also in the hands of an early-stage Yuanying realm cultivator, who was chasing after him even further. Who asked him to have grief and indignation in his heart. He no longer deliberately hid his whereabouts. Using the Imperial Thunder transformation, he madly rushed into the distance, leaving an easy way for the enemy to track him. Of course, because the Imperial Thunder transformation's flying speed was extremely fast, Shan Shengzi and Immortal Dewey couldn't get close for a while, and Immortal Lei Meng was even further away. After flying for more than 10 days, Xiao Hua's heart gradually calmed down. He reflected on his own actions, and then reflected on the actions of the Imperial Thunder sect. He didn't feel that there was anything to be sad about being expelled from the Imperial Thunder sect. Besides, wasn't flying freely in this vast world what he wanted? He planned to find the frost bamboo and go to the ruins of the Buddhist sect. After waking up Jiang Liuer, he planned to go to the depths of Million Meng Mountains to find the mysterious Shaman King, so that he could break the yin-yang seal in his middle Dantian and Niwen Palace. After that, he would stay in Million Meng Mountains and cultivate his cultivation base to Yuanying realm before coming out to seek revenge. After making up his mind, he flew for a few more days. Seeing that there were cultivators flying by, Xiao Hua asked about the nearest teleportation formation and flew toward it again. For the next 10 days, Xiao Hua was freely teleporting in the teleportation formation. Until one day, when he came out of a teleportation formation, Xiao Hua used a lot of spirit stones to exchange for a map to the nearest teleportation formation from the cultivator guarding the formation. Only then did he rush out of the teleportation formation set up in the cliff. Xiao Hua flew for nearly a day again, and his old problem came back. He couldn't find the direction, so he hurriedly took out the map he just got to check. Unfortunately, he did forget that he couldn't find the direction, and it had nothing to do with what was written on the map. However, when he saw the familiar name of Qianhong Mountain on the map, he couldn't help but be slightly stunned. Oh, it seems that this place. Thinking about it, Xiao Hua hurriedly took out a jade slip from his space. After looking at it carefully, he nodded and said, "It's the name of the place given to the female cultivator in Sentry City after exchanging a magic slip for a rejuvenation pill. I remember that she said that there were some cumbersome demonic tools in her hands at that time, but she didn't bring them. If there's a chance, let me come and find her, she will give these demonic tools to me." Thinking that he could get the demonic tools for free, the greedy Xiao Hua's heart itched. He secretly said, "Hehe, since I can't find the right direction, it's better to send out the communication talisman. This place seems to be not far from Qianhong Mountain, so I can ask." Alas, do I still need to ask? Since I know the location of Qianhong Mountain, I can naturally find the next teleportation formation. With that, Xiao Hua clapped his hand and took out the communication talisman. He activated his magic power and secretly prayed, "Heavenly spirits, earth spirits, let this female cultivator stay at home." Fortunately, as the communication talisman emitted a bright red brilliance, it immediately rushed into the air and headed in a direction. Good. Xiao Hua was overjoyed. He activated the wind escape technique and chased after it. Behind him, outside the teleportation formation, Daoist Du Yi and Shan Shengzi also teleported out. After a little investigation, they flew toward the next teleportation formation. The greedy Xiao Hua actually escaped the pursuit of 2 nascent soul intermediate stage cultivators because of a thought. It had to be said that this was a miracle. Xiao Hua chased after the communication talisman for a while. Seeing that the communication talisman was heading straight in a direction, Xiao Hua did not chase after it. As long as the general direction was correct, that female cultivator called Ruo Daohong would definitely come out to welcome him. Thus, he unconsciously looked at the surrounding mountains with interest. He saw that the mountains near Qianhong Mountain were not high, and the undulations were not big. Under the warm sunlight, the mountains were covered with green grass and green trees, which were quite pleasing to the eye. From time to time, there would be the sound of a stream, but it was covered by the vegetation and could not be seen. It was precisely because of this tranquility that Xiao Hua could hear the cries of birds and the roars of beasts from time to time, which made him feel even more comfortable. Alas, the Dao Sword War has been going on for more than 10 years. I have never calmed down to cultivate, and even this kind of leisure is rare. When Jiang Liuer is awakened, even if I can't bring Fairy Hongxia and Shueshue out, I will have to calm down. The home that we Dao sect cultivators fought so hard to protect should be appreciated. As he looked at the nameless and beautiful scenery, he closed his eyes and listened to the ordinary and moving sounds of nature. Xiao Hua's slightly cold and desolate heart slowly calmed down. The gloominess in his heart also slowly disappeared, and an ethereal state of mind slowly appeared. That's right, the path to the heavenly Dao is long and long. Whether it is Yellow Flower Ridge, Heaven Forsaken, Golden Mount Hua, or Imperial Thunder Sect, they are all small relay stations. If I pass them, then I pass them. It is just like fate. Before this Xiao, there are still the ruins of the Buddhist sect and the Fortune Gate. Which one of them is not beautiful? Even if it is Meng Mountain, it is still beyond the Imperial Thunder Sect's reach, right? Xiao Hua's mouth revealed a smile. -11. Chapter 3066. Kinship is the most important thing, but kinship can be hidden in the heart. Kinship is related to Master and the others, but it's far from the Imperial Thunder Sect. Thinking about the palace masters of the Qianlei Palace and Kanlei Palace, I'm afraid they have nothing to do with kinship between disciples of the same sect, right? If they leave, then so be it. In this way, I'll sever all ties with the Imperial Thunder Sect. I've received a lot of favors from the Imperial Thunder Sect, but I've made great contributions to the sect in the great battle of Dao and Sword. Since they expelled me, I don't owe them anything. I've thrown away a huge burden. Karma, karma. There's Qian Qing Hua as the cause, and there's also Qian Qing Hua as the effect. The way of karma is one of the heavenly Daos. While thinking, Xiao Hua was enlightened. Not far in front of him was a patch of brilliant red, and there were peach blossoms all over the undulating mountain ridge. How could Xiao Hua not know that the Thousand Red Mountain was close? At that moment, a small dot flew out from the fiery red light and headed towards Xiao Hua. Similarly, the divine sense of a late Foundation establishment cultivator swept towards Xiao Hua. When it landed on Xiao Hua's body, it stopped. The divine sense was rather cold and contained hostility. Oh! Xiao Hua frowned slightly, but did not release his divine sense. He only looked indifferently at the newcomer. When the newcomer came closer, it was a dark and thin old man. There was a trace of jealousy in his small eyes, and a trace of anger on his almost fleshless grey face. Hey! Why is it old monster she? Xiao Hua recognized him at a glance. Because this person left a deep impression on Xiao Hua, it was Shi Wuming, whom Xiao Hua met at Jingbua City's Yiji when he was only at the second layer of qi refining. It was also this Shi Wuming who sold Xiao Hua the broken silver-gilded spear tip. Although Xiao Hua's memory was not good, this person had left a deep impression on him. Xiao Hua even borrowed the name of Mingsue Mountains Shi Wuming at the Lingji gathering at Lingpei Mountain Villa. However, Xiao Hua suddenly realized that Ruo Daohong had a demonic weapon and even a demonic bamboo slip. This Shi Wuming also had one, so there must be some connection. Thinking of this, Xiao Hua put on a smile on his face and went up to greet him, who knew that when he got closer, Shi Wuming's expression changed. With a wave of his hand, a magic weapon about the size of a palm flew out from his hand. He cursed angrily, "Damned gigolo. I asked you to come and pick up peach blossoms. Today, I will beat you until your brain splatters with peach blossoms." As he cast a spell, the palm-sized magic weapon let out a rumbling sound. A pitch-black seal swelled in the wind, and in a moment, it became 10 feet large and smashed toward Xiao Hua's head. Xiao Hua stared blankly as he saw that the seal had already arrived above his head. A powerful force mixed with a frightening sound enveloped the space around him. Even the true essence in his body was slightly trembling. It seemed that the power of this seal was not small. Looking at Shi Wuming's eyes that were flashing with malice, it was actually a kind of pleasure. The smile on Xiao Hua's face gradually disappeared. That's right, a cultivator in the late stage of Foundation establishment who forced a cultivator in the second stage of qi refining to buy his demonic weapon. How could you expect him to have a kind heart? Although she was an old acquaintance that he had met once, that fate had probably ended long ago. Looking at how Shi Wuming was about to smash him to death without a word, Xiao Hua's heart turned cold. He flung his Taoist robe. Boom! The 10 feet large seal instantly stopped in midair. No matter how much the pitch-black light on it flashed, no matter how loud the buzzing sound was, it still could not be suppressed by even half an inch. You! Shi Wuming's small eyes widened as he looked at Xiao Hua in disbelief. The magic around him surged again. Go! Xiao Hua sneered. With a wave of his hand, the huge mace appeared in his hand. Wang! A shrill sound rang out. Boom. It was precisely the sound of the mace hitting the seal. Woo! The fan seal let out a mournful wail and soared into the sky. Xiao Hua could even hear a crack in his ears. The fan seal, under Shi Wuming's shocked gaze and his face instantly turned red, flew hundreds of feet away and crashed into the sea of crimson flowers. The force of the impact was so great that the entire mountain trembled slightly. It was like a stone falling into the water. Xiao Hua waved the mace in his hand and coldly said, "Old ghost Shi, today I will settle old scores with you." As he spoke, Xiao Hua flew up and attacked Shi Wuming, who was not too far away. At this moment, another cultivator in the late stage of foundation establishment swept over with his divine sense. At the same time, an anxious voice sounded, "Shi Wuming, if you dare to hurt my guest, don't ever think of seeing me again. Peach Blossom, save me." Out of Xiao Hua's expectations, Shi Wuming suddenly flew up and shouted, "Where did you find such a powerful gigolo? Chen-ph, trying to escape?" Xiao Hua sneered. He seemed to have understood something. With a wave of his hand, Xiao Hua used the heaven and earth sleeve again. Shi Wuming was only in the late stage of foundation establishment. How could he escape from the attack of a nascent soul cultivator? His hands and feet flailed in the air, but he could not move an inch. When he realized how weak he was, Shi Wuming's face immediately changed to fear. He stood in the air dejectedly, not daring to take any chances. "Hey! Shi Wuming." When the female cultivator in the pink robe landed in the air, she looked at Xiao Hua and then at Shi Wuming. Her face was filled with astonishment. In just a moment, the female cultivator's watery eyes looked up and down at Xiao Hua. A smile appeared on her face as she cupped her hands and said, "I Ruo Daohong greet fellow cultivator Xiao Hua. I didn't expect to meet the famous Xiao Hua of the Imperial Thunder Sect in Sky Patrol City that day. I was really blind that day. Fellow cultivator Ruo, you don't have to be so polite." Xiao Hua knew that the great battle of Dao and Sword had made him famous in the Dawn Rain continent. He did not mind being recognized by Ruo Daohong. He cupped his hands and said, "I didn't participate in the battle that day, so I'm not famous. It's normal that fellow cultivator can't recognize me." Xiao Hua. Shi Wuming lowered his pitiful head and suddenly raised it up. He looked at Xiao Hua in disbelief, as if he had thought of something. Shi Wuming, this is Xiao Hua of the first team in the great battle of Dao and Sword. He's now famous in the 3 kingdoms of cultivation. How can you be so bold now? Ruo Daohong shouted in exasperation. However, with her slightly plump figure, plump round face, and watery peach blossom eyes, she did not look like she was blaming him. "Are you really that Xiao Hua?" Shi Wuming tried to ask. "Quickly greet fellow cultivator Xiao," Ruo Daohong said anxiously. "Even if you don't care about the great battle of Dao and Sword, this is my contribution to the battle. Hehe, fellow cultivator Ruo, this Xiao and old devil Shi are old acquaintances." Xiao Hua waved his hand and said with a smile, "I'm sure fellow cultivator Shi has remembered the pass." "How is that possible?" Shi Wuming jumped in the air. "When I saw you, you were only at the 2nd level of qi refining. After so many years, my cultivation is still the same. How can you reach the middle stage of foundation establishment in such a short time? Have I been living like a dog? Chen-ph, how can you compare to fellow cultivator Xiao?" Ruo Daohong's face also showed shock, but she immediately scolded, "If you want to compare, you can only compare to old devil Shi. He's a pretty boy you recruited. Naturally, you have to speak for him." Shi Wuming sneered, "Ruo Daohong, this old man did not expect you to be so fickle. Don't forget what you said to this old man back then." Ruo Daohong's face turned red, and she said angrily, "This old woman did promise you back then. But it was only a promise. You haven't reached the golden core stage yet. How can this old woman dual cultivate with you? Because this old man can't reach the golden core stage, you found a pretty boy who can?" Shi Wuming was even angrier. "Don't you think you're an old cow eating young grass?" "Yes. This old woman is an old cow eating young grass." Ruo Daohong also scolded. "But what about you? Aren't you an old cow eating young grass now?" You. Shi Wuming said anxiously, "When you didn't take the rejuvenation pill, how could you be a young grass? You were more like withered leaves and weed." This old man has always been thinking about you, but you've forgotten your roots. This old man must have been blind all these years. You. Ruo Taohong's face turned pale. She looked at Xiao Hua's interested expression and said coldly, "What?" Shi Wuming, this old woman is like this. Look at Xiao Hua, he's younger than you, more handsome than you, and when it comes to cultivation and reputation, which one of them is not better than yours? Do you think that between him and you, this old woman would choose you? Hearing this, Shi Wuming's eyes flashed with an ominous glint. He glanced at Xiao Hua, but when he thought of the power of Xiao Hua's staff, he hesitated. Shut up. Seeing that trouble was about to come to him, Xiao Hua said indifferently, "This Xiao only came to your 1,000 Red Mountain to take back the few demonic weapons you promised me when I exchanged the rejuvenation pill with you. And this Xiao only thought of it when I was passing by. If you don't want to fulfill your promise, this Xiao doesn't care. This Xiao will take his leave now." "What? The rejuvenation pill? You exchanged it with her? You came for those demonic weapons?" Shi Wuming was stunned. "Nonsense." Xiao Hua looked coldly at this somewhat eccentric old man and said, "The treasures in your eyes may not be treasures in this Xiao's eyes. How many female cultivators are chasing after this Xiao? I bet you can't even count them with your fingers. Would this Xiao compete with you for a woman's affection?" As he spoke, Xiao Hua's body flashed with thunder, and it looked like he was about to leave. "Ayo, fellow Daoist Xiao, don't be impatient." Ruo Daohong was anxious and hurriedly smiled. "This concubine can't stand seeing old devil she compete with you for a woman's affection, so I purposely made him angry. Fellow Daoist Xiao, please don't blame me. In addition, other than the demonic weapons in this concubine's cave, old devil she also has some demonic weapons that he can trade with fellow Daoist. And that old devil Mo has the same thing as last time, a demonic bamboo slip that he can trade with fellow Daoist." -11. Chapter 3067. Oh! Xiao Hua's heart skipped a beat when he heard that there were other demonic slips. He stopped and asked, "Fellow Daoist Ruo, please don't lie to me." "Of course not, of course not." When Shi Wuming heard that Xiao Hua was not Ruo Daohong, he smiled and said, "Didn't you see my demonic tool last time in Jinghua City? This time it's much more than last time, and the cost is even lower." "Hey!" Ruo Daohong was stunned and pointed at Xiao Hua. "Shi Wuming, is fellow Daoist Xiao the one who bought your demonic tool last time in Jinghua City?" "Hehe, that's right, that's right." Shi Wuming rubbed his hands and winked at Xiao Hua, as if trying to please him. However, Xiao Hua sneered. He knew that Shi Wuming was not trying to get close to him because of his high cultivation level. There must be other reasons. Sure enough, before Xiao Hua could think further, Ruo Daohong revealed the truth. "That's not right." Ruo Daohong realized and asked curiously, "Didn't you say that the one who bought your demonic tool was a foundation establishment middle-stage cultivator? But you said that Xiao Hua was only a second-stage qi refining stage cultivator. How could he have dozens of top-grade spirit stones?" This. Shi Wuming's expression changed and he smiled. If fellow Daoist Xiao was only a second-stage qi refining stage cultivator, how could he be a foundation establishment middle late-stage qi refining stage cultivator? Then, he winked at Xiao Hua again. Xiao Hua naturally wouldn't lie for him. Instead he asked curiously, "Old devil Shi, you first, what is going on inside?" "Hehe, it's like this." Shi Wuming rubbed his hands and explained the whole story in embarrassment. It was actually very simple. Back then, Shi Wuming and another foundation establishment late-stage cultivator, Mo Shan, were both interested in Ruo Daohong of 1,000 Red Mountain. The three of them had been entangled for more than 10 or 20 years. In the end, the three of them could not take it anymore and came up with an idea. Ruo Daohong pointed out 2 places for Shi Wuming and Mo Shan to go to these 2 places. Whoever could trade one of their demonic tools and return to 1,000 Red Mountain first, Ruo Daohong would agree to dual cultivate with that person. Of course, during this process, everyone swore a blood oath that they would definitely follow the instructions. Otherwise, they would be devoured by the magic artifact and die. In the end, Shi Wuming won and Mo Shan lost. From then on, Shi Wuming could confidently come to Thousand Red Mountain. However, although Ruo Daohong agreed to perform dual cultivation with Shi Wuming, they never held a dual cultivation ceremony. Instead, they requested that the ceremony be held only after Shi Wuming reached the Jindan stage. Shi Wuming was already in the late stage of foundation establishment, so he was not too far away from the Jindan stage. Since Mo Shan would not disturb them, it did not matter whether there was a dual cultivation ceremony or not. But who would have thought that more than 10 years ago, Ruo Daohong made a trip to Sky Patrol City and returned to her youthfulness. She was the charming peach blossom lady of the past. This time, not only was Shi Wuming moved, even Mo Shan was drooling over her. Hence, the number of people who came for her increased. Today, Shi Wuming was talking to Ruo Daohong about the dual cultivation ceremony. When he was rejected by Ruo Daohong, he saw a message from Xiao Hua. Ruo Daohong saw the message and immediately left Shi Wuming and went into the cave to dress up. Shi Wuming was naturally enraged. He rushed out of the cave and wanted to kill Xiao Hua. Hearing Shi Wuming's words, Xiao Hua sneered in his heart. No wonder Qi refining disciples are so afraid of foundation establishment cultivators and always treat them with respect. If my cultivation was not high enough, I'm afraid that just because of this misunderstanding, my life would have been taken. Shi Wuming saw Xiao Hua's unfriendly expression and quickly bowed. Fellow Daoist Xiao, this old man was wrong, but since you and I are old friends, I hope you can forgive this old man. Xiao Hua understood that Shi Wuming was afraid that he would expose his actions. Of course, Shi Wuming's devil spear was indeed good and had saved his life several times. Speaking of which, Xiao Hua also had to thank Shi Wuming. Hence, he nodded and said, in that case, this Xiao agrees. Our grievances are over. Thank you, thank you. Shi Wuming was overjoyed. Fellow Daoist Xiao. Ruo Daohong asked unhappily, then what happened in Jinghua City that year? Xiao Hua laughed and before Ruo Daohong could finish, he interrupted her. Fellow Daoist Ruo, it's been so many years. No matter what the truth is, fellow Daoist has already agreed to what you should have agreed to and rejected what you should have rejected. Is the truth still important? That's right, that's right. Shi Wuming laughed. You've already made a blood oath. As soon as this old man condensed his core, you'll immediately hold the dual cultivation ceremony with this old man. At this point, Shi Wuming solemnly said, fellow Daoist Xiao, when the time comes, this old man and my wife will definitely send you an invitation. Fellow Daoist, you must honor us. Ha ha. Xiao Hua laughed, but didn't express any opinion. Ruo Daohong knew Shi Wuming's character and knew that something unpleasant would happen. She glared at Shi Wuming and said angrily, this old woman hasn't done dual cultivation with you yet. Where did this wife come from? She then smiled at Xiao Hua and said, fellow Daoist Xiao, please. It's rare for you to come to Thousand Red Mountain. Please come to my cave for a chat. Fellow Daoist, please. Xiao Hua nodded with a smile. Ruo Daohong led the way while Xiao Hua followed behind. Shi Wuming followed behind with a smile on his face. After flying for a while, he saw a mountain ridge where his magic weapon was shot down. He smiled embarrassedly and flew over to retrieve his magic weapon. Ruo Daohong and Xiao Hua ignored this guy and flew towards a cave in Thousand Red Mountain. Ruo Daohong's cave was in the middle of a field of flowers. The entrance of the cave was blocked by hundreds and thousands of short, crooked peach trees. The branches of each peach tree were covered with bright red peach blossoms. The peach blossoms pressed down on the branches until they were bent. Dozens of fist-sized unknown spirit sparrows flew among the peach blossoms, adding a lot of vitality to the cave. In front of the abode, there were several children, both male and female. Some held flower baskets in their hands while others held feather fans. They wore bright Daoist robes as they stood there in an orderly manner. When they saw Xiao Hua and Ruo Daohong land, they all had respectful expressions as they greeted them in a clear and melodious voice. It gave off the feeling of an immortal abode. Looking around, Xiao Hua was puzzled and asked, fellow Daoist Ruo, you're the only cultivator in Thousand Red Mountain? Didn't you say it was a small sect? Fellow Daoist Xiao, My 1,000 Red Mountain naturally can't be compared to your Imperial Thunder Sec. Ruo Daohong invited Xiao Hua into the cave and explained, however, my 1,000 Red Mountain also has thousands of disciples. Oh, where are they? This Xiao doesn't seem to have seen your 1,000 Red Mountains sect protection formation. Xiao Hua said curiously. Hehe, this cave is just one of my side residences. It's not within the 1,000 Red Mountains formation, Ruo Daohong said with a smile. Although I also have a cave residence within the 1,000 Red Mountains formation, I'm just a consecrator of the 1,000 Red Mountain. My usual residence is here and not within the 1,000 Red Mountain. Oh, there's such a consecrator. Xiao Hua was puzzled. Of course, Ruo Daohong said with a smile, this kind of thing is naturally not common in a large sect like your Imperial Thunder Sec. However, it's common in a small sect like the 1,000 Red Mountain. At this point, a trace of loneliness appeared on Ruo Daohong's face and she explained, actually, I was originally a disciple of the Splendid Sect and had nothing to do with the 1,000 Red Mountain. However, because I made a big mistake, I was driven out of the sect by the Splendid Sect. Originally, they wanted to abolish my cultivation, but I made a certain contribution to the Splendid Sect, so I was lucky enough to keep my cultivation. Oh! Xiao Hua raised his eyebrows and was stunned in his heart. Without the Splendid Sect, I'm considered a rogue cultivator, Ruo Daohong said with a bitter smile, but I'm a female cultivator. If I were to rely on my identity as a rogue cultivator, I wouldn't be able to cultivate normally. I had no choice but to find a small sect like the 1,000 Red Mountain and become their consecrator and their disciple. However, I don't usually need to go to the sect. Only when the 1,000 Red Mountain has some errands, I'll go back to the sect to deal with them. Usually, all the spirit stones, medicinal pills, and even cultivation methods are consecrated by the 1,000 Red Mountain. Oh so it's like this. Xiao Hua understood and asked again, then, your natal spirit tablet is also in the 1,000 Red Mountain? Hehe, of course. Ruo Daohong said with a smile, unless I cultivate to the Gold Core Realm or my husband is a Gold Core Realm, the 1,000 Red Mountain will return my natal spirit tablet to me. Hehe, I understand. Xiao Hua also knew why Ruo Daohong had to learn the nameless core condensation technique before dual cultivating with him. Fellow Daoist, please sit tilde after entering the cave. Ruo Daohong invited Xiao Hua to take a seat and said with a smile, actually, being a consecrator in a small sect like the 1,000 Red Mountain is also very good. Usually, there won't be any big matters. If I need anything, I'll have the servant bring it to the 1,000 Red Mountains sect master. The sect master will satisfy me according to the 1,000 Red Mountains ability. Xiao Hua sat down and asked with a smile, if someone comes to the 1,000 Red Mountain to provoke or attack, fellow Daoist Ruo will have to represent the 1,000 Red Mountain to fight, right? Of course. Not only that, but I will also have to appear when the 1,000 Red Mountain fights are involved. Ruo Daohong sat down and answered, however, the sect master of the 1,000 Red Mountain isn't very ambitious. He only wants to defend himself, so I don't have to work too hard. Immediately, Ruo Daohong ordered the servant to put down spirit fruits and spirit wine. Not long after, Shi Wuming also returned. Xiao Hua politely ate a few spirit fruits but didn't drink the spirit wine. After casually chatting for a while, Ruo Daohong asked a few more questions about the Great Dao Sword War. Xiao Hua said, fellow Daoist Ruo, I didn't come here to ask you to fulfill your promise, but since you're here, hey, it's fine. Ruo Daohong smiled and said, that day, I took your rejuvenation pill. Those demonic tools and demonic slips can't compare to the value of the rejuvenation pill. If you didn't come, I was thinking of going to the Imperial Thunder Sect to give them the demonic tools. Now that you're here, I won't have to make an extra trip. As she spoke, Ruo Daohong took out a storage pouch from her waist and handed it to Xiao Hua. I saw fellow Daoist Xiao's message talisman and went to the inner cave to prepare these demonic tools. Who would have thought that I would be misunderstood by others? Seeing Ruo Daohong's glare, Shi Wuming shrunk his neck. He really did misunderstand her. -11. Chapter 3068. Xiao Hua took the storage pouch and looked at the many demonic weapons inside. He smiled and cupped his hands. Fellow Daoist Ruo, there are so many demonic weapons in this storage pouch. This is beyond my expectations. Thank you. You're welcome. This is what I should do. Ruo Daohong looked at Xiao Hua and then at Shi Wuming. The two exchanged glances and said, actually, I still have something to discuss with fellow Daoist Xiao. Oh, please speak. Xiao Hua kept the storage pouch and smiled. Chirp chirp. A clear chirp of a bird came from outside the cave and a message talisman in the shape of a flying bird flew to Ruo Daohong's eyes. He, Mo Shan is here. Ruo Daohong took the message talisman and pointed at it. A dark red jade talisman fell into her hand. Just in time. After fellow Daoist Xiao changes his Mo bamboo slip, I will discuss with fellow Daoist Xiao. All right. Xiao Hua was looking forward to Mo Shan's Mo bamboo slip and nodded. Not long after, under the guidance of a boy, a similarly thin old man with a yellowish complexion and a pair of small eyes walked into the cave residence. Moreover, this old man's gaze swept across the room. When he saw Xiao Hua, he actually had a trace of vigilance like Shi Wuming. He even looked at Shi Wuming and Ruo Daohong with an ambiguous gaze. Who is this? Mo Shan did not bother with formalities and asked rudely. As he spoke, he walked to a jade chair and acted as if he was in his own cave. Cough cough tilde Ruo Daohong coughed and said, Mo Shan, take a good look at this fellow Daoist. Don't you recognize him? Oh, do I need to recognize him? Mo Shan had already sat down and reached out to grab a spiritual fruit from the jade plate beside Shi Wuming. He took a big bite and said coldly. However, he still obediently looked at Xiao Hua and curled his lips. He then asked Shi Wuming, Old Devil Shi, is this your new opponent? Although I have already backed out of the agreement, Daohong still refuses to duel cultivate with you. Is it because of this little white face? Xiao Hua looked at the three with a bitter smile. The emotional entanglement of these three seemed to be different from that of Zhen Qing, Sun Qian, and Chen Yi. What nonsense are you talking about? Ruo Daohong said angrily, this is fellow Daoist Xiao Hua of the Imperial Lightning Sect, and is also a member of the first group in the Dao Sect's meeting hall during the Dao Sword battle. It is precisely because of his outstanding military exploits, who knows how many sword cultivators have died at his hand. Oh! Mo Shan, who was in the middle of swallowing the spirit fruit, was taken aback. He looked at Xiao Hua up and down in shock. Then, he curled his lips and threw the spirit fruit into his mouth again. He chewed with big bites and even crushed the core. Finally, he said in a strange tone, the Great Dao Sword War? The disciples of the various cultivation sects had just finished singing their praises and entered the stage. One by one, they seized the battle merits and distributed the spirit stone veins of the three cultivation countries, squeezing us small sects to the point where we had no place to go. I don't care if you're from the Imperial Thunder sect or the Splendid sect. What does that have to do with me? Old monster Mo, how can you not care about the Great War of Dao and Sword? Shi Wuming laughed. Now that I have Daohong to accompany me, you're all alone. You should find something to do to pass the time. Mo Shan rolled his eyes and said coldly, accompany? How can she accompany you? Why don't you hurry up and send this gigolo away? If you let him stay here for a few more hours, you won't even be able to enter this abode. Strangely, Shi Wuming did not bicker with Mo Shan like before. Instead, he smiled and said, if I can't enter, then I can't enter. Anyway, I've already been here, and you haven't even entered. Shi Wuming's words seemed to have a double meaning, and Tao Hong's face instantly turned red. Just as she was about to get angry, Xiao Hua glanced at the three of them and felt bored. He opened his mouth and said, fellow Daoist Shi, you said you have some demonic tools. Can you show them to me? Of course. Shi Wuming looked at Mo Shan and the defeated rooster. His two small eyes widened, but he could not refute himself. He proudly pulled out 2 storage pouches from his waist and handed them to Xiao Hua. Xiao Hua opened it and took a look. There were indeed many strange demon artifacts inside. Some were big and some were small, and there were even many with blood patterns. Xiao Hua knew from the refining method of the heaven leveling staff that this heaven leveling staff was different from the heaven raising staff. It required a lot of items of the 5 elements or extremely heavy materials to refine. Moreover, it could be added as one's strength increased. These demonic tools were extremely heavy and were the best materials to refine the heaven's rod. That was why Xiao Hua thought of coming to Thousand Red Mountain to look for Dao Hong. That's right. I'll take all of these. Xiao Hua smiled and nodded. He asked Shi Wuming, fellow Daoist Shi, how many spirit stones do you want? Ah, you want all of them? Shi Wuming was obviously stunned. He did not expect Xiao Hua to ask for so much. Shi Wuming looked at Dao Hong, seemingly unsure. Dao Hong also frowned and asked curiously, fellow Daoist Xiao, these demonic tools, if there is 1 or 2 of them, they should be useful. Fellow Daoist Xiao wants so many at once. Millimeter, in addition to the ones I have, there are already a lot of them. I've never heard of so many demonic tools. What are they used for? Hihi, I'm also curious. Xiao Hua smiled and said, don't the 3 of you have even more demonic tools? What are you here for? The matter of the demonic tools is related to what I'm going to discuss with fellow Daoist. Dao Hong smiled and said, I won't hide anything from fellow Daoist. At this time, Mo Shan said coldly, fellow Daoist Xiao, do you have great strength? You want to refine an extremely heavy magic tool? Oh! Xiao Hua raised his eyebrows and smiled, fellow Daoist Mo seems to know something. That's right. Mo Shan nodded, not only do I know something, I also know some tricks to refine such a magic tool. Millimeter, since fellow Daoist Mo said it. Then I won't hide anything from you. Because I have some strength, I want to refine an extremely heavy magic tool. Xiao Hua looked at Shi Wuming and smiled. Back then, it was your demonic tools that gave me this idea. Hearing this, Shi Wuming's face changed slightly. He wasn't sure if Xiao Hua's words were a threat, but fortunately, Xiao Hua looked at Mo Shan and said, as for the refining method, I already have it. Most of the materials have already been collected, I just need to find some more. Fellow Daoist Mo's trick. Hee. Seeing that Xiao Hua ignored his words, Mo Shan didn't say anything else. He smiled coldly and poured another cup of spirit wine and sipped it. Fellow Daoist Shi? Xiao Hua reminded, how much do you think these demonic tools are worth? This. Shi Wuming hesitated and looked at Ruo Dao Hong. Ruo Dao Hong saw that Xiao Hua readily admitted to refining magic tools, so she smiled and said, since these demonic tools are useful to fellow Daoist Xiao, and we have no use for them, why not trade with fellow Daoist Xiao? Millimeter tilde Shi Wuming nodded. Just as he was about to speak, his heart skipped a beat and he almost blurted out, rejuvenation pill. If fellow Daoist Xiao has a rejuvenation pill, these demonic tools will all belong to fellow Daoist Xiao. Ah! Xiao Hua stared blankly for a moment, then smiled bitterly. He had indeed just refined a rejuvenation pill, but could he take it out? Rejuvenation pill tilde Mo Shan was also shocked. The wine cup in his hand trembled as he looked at Xiao Hua. Fellow Daoist Shi. Xiao Hua shook his head. Fellow Daoist Ruo's rejuvenation pill was obtained by chance when I was training in Twilight Tong City. You can ask fellow Daoist Ruo, that pill was extremely ugly and did not look like a pill at all. At that time, there was someone who said that it was a face-retaining pill. Ordinary fellow Taoists would not bid for it, and I just happened to have something that person needed. I had already consumed a spiritual herb similar to the face-retaining pill, so I had no use for it. However, my cultivation at that time was shallow and I was forced to trade, so I had no choice but to use that thing to exchange for the face-retaining pill. I did not know that it was a rejuvenation pill. That day in Sky Patrol City, I made the trade because I hoped to obtain fellow Daoist Ruo's magic bamboo slip. If I had known that it was a rejuvenation pill, how could I have sold it so cheaply? Sigh, fellow Daoist Xiao is right. Ruo Daohong nodded. That day, fellow Daoist Xiao only said that it was a face-retaining pill, and fellow Daoist Xiao had never seen a rejuvenation pill. However, I received the news in advance, so I was fated to have such a great opportunity. That rejuvenation pill was really ugly. Who would have thought that it was an immortal pill? So, Xiao Hua shrugged and said, If fellow Daoist she wants to get the rejuvenation pill from me, that is absolutely impossible. Seeing that there was no hope for the rejuvenation pill, Shi Wuming hesitated. He looked at Mo Shan and whispered a few words to Xiao Hua. Xiao Hua listened to the message and frowned slightly, as if he was considering it, then he also whispered back. After a few more whispers, Xiao Hua took out a storage pouch from his chest and handed it to Shi Wuming. Shi Wuming opened the storage pouch and checked it, then smiled and said, "Good, since fellow Daoist Xiao is so sincere, then these demonic tools are yours." "Thank you, fellow Daoist Shi." The two storage pouches were originally beside Xiao Hua, so Xiao Hua did not hesitate and accepted them. He then turned to Mo Shan and said, "Fellow Daoist Mo, I heard from fellow Daoist Ruo that you not only have some demonic tools, but also a magic bamboo slip. If fellow Daoist Mo wants to give it to me, you can discuss it with me." Mo Shan had an inexplicable expression on his face. He looked at Xiao Hua and then at Shi Wuming, then asked Xiao Hua, "What did old devil she trade with you?" "Haha, fellow Daoist Mo." Xiao Hua was stunned for a moment, then he smiled and said, "That is fellow Daoist Shi's secret, forgive me for not revealing it." Unexpectedly, Mo Shan took out 3 storage pouches and handed them to Xiao Hua, then he said proudly, "Fellow Daoist Xiao, take a look." "Oh?" Xiao Hua did not know whether to laugh or cry. He could only take the storage pouches and take a closer look. There were indeed many demonic tools inside, and each of them was huge. They were really good materials for refining the heaven pacifying staff. -11. Chapter 3069. What a pity. Xiao Hua placed the storage bag on the table and shook his head. "Although fellow she didn't ask me to keep it a secret, this is the principle of trade. Forgive me for not being able to go against it." "What about this?" Mo Shan seemed to be serious with Xiao Hua. He clapped his hands and took out a pitch-black magic slip and a broken jade slip. "This is a magic slip, I don't know what's inside. But this jade slip contains the method to refine my sect's famous magic tool, the 5-element rod. As long as you agree, I will definitely trade with you. Can I confirm it?" Xiao Hua looked at the 2 items and confirmed that he was tempted. However, he still didn't understand the competition between these 2 strange male cultivators. "No." Mo Shan flatly refused. "The contents of this jade slip are incomplete. I don't have a way to add restrictions, so you'll know once you see it. I can't let you check it first." Xiao Hua laughed and shook his head. "So you're saying that I also don't know if the method to refine the 5-element rod is inside? Believe it or not." Mo Shan laughed. "You're the one refining the magic tool, not me. Also, I don't even want to look at this bullshit magic slip. If I wasn't curious, I would have destroyed it long ago. If you don't want it, I can destroy it right now." "All right." Xiao Hua nodded helplessly. "Fellow Xiao." Shi Wuming was unhappy. "Although I didn't make an agreement with you, I didn't make you swear a blood oath. But what we're exchanging is our secret. How can you tell others?" Shi Wuming. Ruo Daohong was unhappy. She still had some misgivings about Mo Shan, but how could she be careful about Shi Wuming? "No matter." Xiao Hua laughed. "Fellow Shi, don't worry. I definitely won't tell fellow Mo what we're exchanging." Then he turned to Mo Shan and said, "Fellow Mo, you should give up. I definitely won't tell you what I'm exchanging with fellow Shi." "Oh. So fellow Xiao isn't interested in this magic slip?" Mo Shan flipped his hand, and the magic slip appeared in his hand. He activated the magic power in his hand, and it looked like if Xiao Hua said something wrong, he would destroy the magic slip. "You too." Ruo Taohong's face darkened, while Shi Wuming looked at Mo Shan with a smile, his eyes filled with provocation. Xiao Hua laughed, and said loudly, "Although this Xiao will not tell Dao friend Mo what is inside the storage bag, I will not tell you. However, this Xiao is willing to exchange the same thing with fellow Daoist Mo." "Ah!" Shi Wuming was stunned. "How can this be?" "This. What's the difference between this and informing them?" "All right." Mo Shan was overjoyed. Without waiting for Xiao Hua to say anything, he handed the jade slip and magic slip over to Xiao Hua, as if he was afraid Xiao Hua would go back on his word. Xiao Hua didn't hold back. With a wave of his sleeve, the jade slips, the demonic slips, and the 3 storage pouches all flew into the air. Not good. When the items disappeared, Mo Shan suddenly realized something and hurriedly said, "Old, she gave you 2 storage pouches, but this old man has 3 storage pouches." Ha ha ha. Tilda, seeing Mo Shan lose out, she wooming laughed. "Fellow Daoist Mo, this is what you personally agreed to." This Xiao did not bargain. Xiao Hua did not allow him to say anything more. He took out another storage pouch and threw it to Mo Shan. Then he said to Shi wooming, "Fellow Daoist Shi." This Xiao did not say a word to fellow Daoist Mo. Ha ha ha. Good, good. Really good. Shi wooming was still laughing. Seeing Mo Shan lose out, he did not pursue the matter any further. However, Mo Shan opened the storage pouch and took a look. Although his eyes were filled with unwillingness, the corners of his mouth revealed a trace of satisfaction. All right, Xiao Hua was very satisfied. He clapped his hands and said, "This Xiao is very happy to cooperate with the 2 of you. Of course, if there is an opportunity in the future, this Xiao still hopes to exchange demonic weapons with the 2 of you. However, at this time, fellow Daoist Ruo, please tell me, what is it that you want to discuss with this Xiao?" "This is what I wanted to discuss with fellow Daoist Xiao." Ruo Daohong smiled and was about to speak. "Daohong." Mo Shan seemed to be unwilling. He opened his mouth and said, "You want to talk to fellow Daoist Xiao about that matter?" "That matter? What? Old monster Mo, do you think that just the 3 of us can do it?" Ruo Daohong frowned and said coldly, "The 3 of us may not necessarily be able to do it. But if there is another person?" Mo Shan shook his head slightly. "The things inside may not be enough." "How do you know it's not enough?" Shi wooming asked without waiting for Ruo Daohong to speak. "Do you know it's enough?" Mo Shan retorted sarcastically. "Hee hee." Xiao Hua laughed and looked at Ruo Daohong. "Seems like fellow Daoist Ruo and the others need to discuss first." Ruo Daohong looked helplessly at the 2 male cultivators who were like fighting cocks. She said apologetically, "If fellow Daoist Xiao can, please rest here for a night. Let me discuss with the 2 of them first." Then, as if she was afraid that Xiao Hua would not agree, she explained, "The 3 of us found a mysterious place, and from there, we found some clues. There seems to be a spiritual item that can help condense a core and conceive a baby. It's even useful for tempering the body." Xiao Hua wanted to refuse, but when he heard that it could help conceive a baby and even temper the body, he hesitated. He thought for a moment and nodded, "How about this? I can stay here for another night. If we still haven't reached a consensus by tomorrow, I'll take my leave." "Of course." Ruo Daohong smiled, "Fellow Daoist Xiao, do you want to look at the scenery of my 1000 Red Mountain or meditate?" "I'll give fellow Daoist Xiao an answer tomorrow. Let's meditate." Xiao Hua replied without hesitation. Please. Ruo Daohong was not surprised. She got up and personally led Xiao Hua to the cave residence and found a quiet room for him. This action naturally made Mo Shan and Shi Wuming, who were walking behind them and seemed to be monitoring each other, very jealous. Why would Xiao Hua care about them? After entering the cave residence, he set up the capital star formation. After thinking for a moment, he clapped his hands and took out the Mo bamboo slip and jade slip that he just got from Mo Shan. Xiao Hua first released his Buddhist sense and looked into the Mo bamboo slip. The contents of the Mo bamboo slip were very complete. It recorded a cultivation method called Purple Jing Pupil. Seeing the name Purple Jing Pupil, Xiao Hua's heart jumped. He liked new things the most. Although he didn't have demonic fire and demonic blood and couldn't cultivate it, he still roughly looked through the Mo bamboo slip. After spending a lot of energy to look through it, he finally understood. This should be a way for demonic people to cultivate their demonic sense. According to the Mo bamboo slip, the demonic sense of the demonic world was different from spiritual sense and soul sense. It was born with the demonic people. Moreover, the way and location of the demonic sense were different. Some were in the head, some were in the chest, and some were even in the legs. The demonic people cultivated either demonic fire or demonic blood. As their cultivation increased, their demonic sense would also become stronger. The purple Jing pupil secret technique focused the demonic sense of the demonic people in their eyes. Not only could it be as long as the demonic sense, it could also see through all illusions. Damn, this is really good stuff. Isn't this similar to this Xiao's illusion breaker magic eye? Xiao Hua looked at the Mo bamboo slip and felt extremely regretful. The magic eye on his left hand became darker and darker. Moreover, as it became darker, Xiao Hua discovered that there was actually a space in this magic eye that could be used to store things. However, this space was extremely narrow and there were even traces of cracks. Xiao Hua already somewhat understood. The blurring of the illusion breaker magic eye was probably caused by the cracks in this space, right? Second senior brother gave me a lot of jade slips and there are also some Mo bamboo slips. However, most of them are refining methods and there are no secret techniques for cultivating demonic sense. Presumably, he also knows that this demonic sense is innate and this Xiao can't cultivate it. But this secret technique of the amethyst I can indeed transfer devilish sense to the eyes. Then, wouldn't I be able to transfer the Dharma eye into my eyes as well? Xiao Hua thought to himself. How about this Xiao also start cultivating devilish blood? Xiao Hua didn't dare to cultivate demonic arts before because he was a disciple of the Imperial Thunder sect. Cultivating Buddhism was already disgraceful. However, Buddhism's cultivation method was good at hiding. The Tao sect's master might not be able to detect it. If he cultivated demonic arts, wouldn't he be immediately discovered by the Imperial Thunder sect's master? Now, Xiao Hua was already a loner. Who would care about him? Moreover, in order to let Xiao Hua refine the ancient dragon silver, Zhong Qingxiao had already placed the demonic fire, black qi, and demonic blood into the demonic ring and handed it to Xiao Hua. Xiao Hua only needed to cultivate the demonic arts according to the Blood Drop Paradise's cultivation method, and he would be able to truly refine the ancient dragon silver. It could be said that everything was ready except for the east wind. Now, this east wind seemed to be the opportunity for Xiao Hua to be expelled from the Imperial Thunder sect. It's better to wait a little longer. Xiao Hua smiled bitterly. The techniques I'm cultivating now are really too complicated. Even though I haven't bitten off more than I can chew up until now, devil arts are cultivation techniques that are at odds with the Buddhist sect and Daoist sect. Xiao Hua didn't dare casually try it. After putting away the Mo bamboo slip, Xiao Hua used his divine sense to examine the refining method of the 5-element rod. He didn't care too much about this so-called 5-element rod. After all, he already had the refining method of the heaven-pacifying rod and the necessary materials. The 5-element rod couldn't be more powerful than the heaven-pacifying rod, right? He actually hoped that this 5-element rod was the refining method of the 5-element heaven-pacifying rod. However, he also knew that if Mo Shan could take it out, it definitely couldn't be used. At most, like what he said, there were some secrets that weren't damaged. After Xiao Hua finished reading, he couldn't help but be moved. Almost without hesitation, he took out the bone of the heaven-pacifying rod and carefully examined it. After an unknown amount of time, Xiao Hua withdrew his divine sense from the bone and sighed. Alas, the techniques in this world are truly endless. A person's imagination is also limitless. It's also an imitation of the 5-element heaven-pacifying rod. This heaven-pacifying rod and the 5-element rod's materials are somewhat similar, but the refining method is completely different. The most miraculous thing is that, at the critical moment, these two refining methods can actually complement each other. -11. Chapter 3070. That's right, the 5-element rod definitely exceeded Xiao Hua's expectations. Just like the sky-leveling rod, it was another method used by the Tao sect to imitate the 5-element heaven-reaching rod. However, the refining method was already greatly damaged, and only a few key parts could be understood. If he relied solely on this jade slip, it was absolutely impossible to refine the 5-element rod. However, with Xiao Hua's current refining level, he immediately saw the importance of these tricks. They were exactly what the sky-leveling rod didn't cover, and were the absolute shortcomings of the sky-leveling rod. For example, in the sky-leveling rod, although it also needed to refine the 5-element objects together, it relied on the blood sacrifice method, which required an extremely large amount of spiritual blood to fuse these extremely heavy 5-element objects together. This was the blood sacrifice method that Xiao Hua knew. In the 5-element rod, the law of blood sacrifice was replaced by the 5-element spiritual items. With the spiritual items as the foundation, all the 5 elements were built on top of the foundation to create a magical treasure that was like a part of heaven and earth. These two methods each opened up new paths, each had their own wonders, and of course, there were also successful examples. However, in Xiao Hua's eyes, the refining method of the sky-leveling rod was somewhat bloody, leaning more towards the power of the bloodline, and lacking the balance of the 5 elements. The refining method of the 5-element rod leaned towards the composition of the world, the balance of the 5 elements, and lacked condensation. If these two methods were refined together, it would be even closer to the 5-element heaven-reaching rod. Of course, this was easy to say, but it was extremely difficult to do. In the Dawn Rain continent, how many refining masters were proficient in both the Soul refining method and the Dao Sect's refining method? Or even the Demon Realm's refining method? Good tilde. After Xiao Hua connected all the details, he couldn't help but clap his hands and praise. Everything in this world seems to be pushed by an invisible hand. This Xiao was unable to obtain the true refining method of the 5 elements wishful heaven cudgel, but unexpectedly, one after another, I obtained the refining method of the fake one. In the Fog Mountain, I even obtained the lightning refining method. Isn't this a refining method that isn't part of the 5 elements? If I use this lightning refining method to refine the sky-leveling rod, it's absolutely possible. However, Xiao Hua immediately regretted, if I had known that the 10,000 Thunder Valley would be annihilated by 10,000 Thunder Valley, this Xiao would have. When he thought of this, Xiao Hua suddenly froze. He was like a wooden chicken. After a long while, he murmured, "This Xiao is stupid." That unknown thing flew into this Xiao's space from the lightning peak of the myriad lightning valley. That lightning water was naturally flowing into tracing light. But, wasn't there still a lot of lightning water leaking into the air? Isn't this the 10,000 Thunder Valley in my space? I only need to urge the primordial spirit in that space to refine the heaven-leveling rod using the lightning refining method. Wouldn't it be the same as refining it in the myriad Thunder Valley? Even if its second senior brother's dragon silver gilt, it can still be refined. Thinking of this, Xiao Hua hurriedly sent his consciousness into the space. As soon as he entered the space, Xiao Hua was stunned. Because ever since Xiao Hua absorbed the 18 stone walls of the Misty Mountain into his space, his primordial spirit didn't do anything else. Just like the real Xiao Hua, he sat cross-legged in the air in front of the stone wall, comprehending bit by bit. And now, the primordial spirit was still comprehending, but as the primordial spirit waved faintly, traces of lightning flashed around the primordial spirit. The source of the lightning was the inexplicable lightning water high in the sky. Hee. After Xiao Hua froze, he almost laughed out loud. He didn't expect that this primordial spirit's lightning controlling technique was actually more powerful than his own. According to the speed of this primordial spirit's comprehension, it wouldn't be long before it could start refining the heaven-leveling rod, right? Where's Jiang Liuer? Xiao Hua looked at the space that was still deathly still, but in fact, he felt endless vitality. However, this vitality was firmly suppressed, and he couldn't help but feel a little worried. When he saw that Jiang Liuer's situation didn't change at all, Xiao Hua was relieved. Why are this child's eyes rolling around? Suddenly, Xiao Hua finally noticed Jiang Liuer's eyes that were constantly moving. What's this situation? Is he going to wake up? Xiao Hua didn't dare to be negligent and hurriedly pulled Jiang Liuer out of the space. But strangely, when Jiang Liuer came out of the space, her eyes stopped moving. Xiao Hua even used his hand to gently touch Jiang Liuer's eyelids, but there was no reaction at all. Strange. Xiao Hua thought he had seen wrongly. When he put Jiang Liuer into a corner of the space again, a strange thing happened. Jiang Liuer's eyes moved again. I really don't understand. Xiao Hua sighed slightly. I'd better hurry and find the frost bamboo. I hope this senior can quickly wake him up. The longer it takes, the easier it is for things to go wrong. When Xiao Hua's mind withdrew from the space and put away the capital star array, there was a child waiting outside the quiet room. When he saw Xiao Hua come out, he respectfully welcomed him and said, "Master, Fairy Dao Hong is waiting in the front hall. Please follow me." Xiao Hua nodded, but he was indeed disdainful in his heart. "Chumph, what kind of world is this? Why does anyone dare to call themselves a fairy?" This Ruo Dao Hong was a white-haired old woman in the past, ugly as hell. Sigh, I don't know what Hongxia will think when she hears that I was expelled by the Imperial Thundersec. I don't know when she will think about it. It's really annoying. When Xiao Hua came to the front of the cave, Ruo Dao Hong and Shi Wuming were sitting there, but Mo Shan was nowhere to be seen. When Ruo Dao Hong saw Xiao Hua, she immediately stood up and said with a smile, "Fellow Daoist Xiao, I didn't expect you to meditate for 5 days. I wanted to call you out, but I couldn't. Fellow Daoist's array is also strange. 5 days." Xiao Hua was slightly stunned. He didn't expect to spend so much time comprehending a jade slip. Fellow Daoist Xiao must have a new understanding. Shi Wuming clapped and said with a smile, "This old man congratulates fellow Daoist. Hihi, it's nothing." Xiao Hua waved his hand and looked at the empty jade chair. Where did fellow Daoist Mo go? Did fellow Daoist Ruo and fellow Daoist Shi not discuss it with him? "Fellow Daoist Xiao, please take a seat," Ruo Dao Hong said with a smile. The discussion was naturally successful. Old Monster Mo also agreed for fellow Daoist Xiao to participate. However, because there could be others, Old Monster Mo thought of a good friend of his. Although this person's cultivation is not very high, he is proficient in many unorthodox methods. Moreover, he is very quick-witted and can be used. Thus, Old Monster Mo went to invite this person. Xiao Hua listened and didn't ask who this person was. He smiled and said, "Fellow Daoist Ruo, can you tell me your plan now?" Of course, since we invited fellow Daoist Xiao to join forces, we naturally have to explain our plan to fellow Daoist Xiao. Ruo Dao Hong nodded, but Old Monster Mo wants to invite another helper. "Fellow Daoist Xiao, why don't you wait for a few more days? When that person comes, we can discuss it together." Xiao Hua listened and frowned slightly. Although he had some expectations for this mysterious person, Jiang Liu's matter was also imminent. He felt that he was somewhat distracted. "Oh, fellow Daoist Xiao, Old Monster Mo has already been gone for a few days. I'm afraid he will be back soon." "Fellow Daoist Xiao, you don't have to rush," Shi Wuming hurriedly said. Before Old Monster Mo came to Thousand Red Mountain, he met that person. Moreover, that person was said to have participated in the Great War of Dao and Sword. Perhaps fellow Daoist Xiao might know him too. "Who?" Xiao Hua raised his eyebrows and asked curiously. Old Monster Mo didn't say. Ruo Dao Hong sighed and said, "What I said just now was all from Old Monster Mo. I don't know that person either. If it's just a few days, that's fine." Xiao Hua nodded slightly. "I can wait, but I'm afraid it won't be possible if it's too long." "Fellow Daoist Xiao, is there anything else? Is there anything more important than improving your cultivation?" Ruo Dao Hong asked with a smile. However, from her tone, she didn't necessarily want Xiao Hua to answer. She just seemed to be chatting casually. There are some important things that I need to do after all," Xiao Hua answered vaguely as expected. But then, Xiao Hua looked outside the cave abode and said casually, "That's right, where exactly is that mysterious person? Can you tell me a little about it first?" This. Ruo Dao Hong was a little embarrassed. She looked at Shi Wuming and said, "This place still needs to be kept a secret. I hope fellow Daoist Xiao can understand. When that person arrives, we can discuss it together. How about that?" "All right." Xiao Hua nodded. He picked up a spirit fruit and was about to eat it, but then he asked casually, "There's no need to talk about the specific place, but can you tell me the general location? If there's time, I would like to go and do something first. That place is very far from here. If fellow Daoist Xiao wants to go, I'm afraid you won't have time to do anything else." Ruo Dao Hong shook her head and said, "However, if fellow Daoist Xiao wants to know the general location, I can tell you a little about it. Then, Ruo Daohong said telepathically, it's near Luanshi's Fulin Mountain. I'll tell fellow Daoist Xiao the specific location very soon. When that fellow Daoist arrives, we can discuss the specific matters together. At that time, we'll need fellow Daoist Xiao to lead us. Xiao Hua answered casually. He didn't comment and still put the spirit fruit into his mouth. However, the moment Xiao Hua took a bite of the spirit fruit, he suddenly froze. He frowned, as if he thought of something. Ruo Daohong was afraid that Xiao Hua would be angry, so she kept staring at Xiao Hua's expression. When she saw Xiao Hua frown, her heart skipped a beat and she looked at Shi Wuming. Although Shi Wuming was arrogant and had a strange temper, after being easily defeated by Xiao Hua, he was convinced. When he saw Ruo Daohong looking at him, his eyes darted around, wondering if he should tell Xiao Hua the specific location. Unexpectedly, Xiao Hua suddenly raised his head and swallowed the spirit fruit. He stood up and said, fellow Daoist Ruo, fellow Daoist Shi, I'm really sorry. I suddenly thought of an extremely important matter. I'm afraid I can't stay here for long. That mysterious place, if you two fellow Daoists can wait, please don't go there casually. Once I'm done with my business, we can discuss it in detail. Since you've invited me, I should at least have some confidence in protecting everyone's safety, right? -11. Chapter 3071. This. Ruo Daohong panicked and shouted, fellow Daoist Xiao, why are you in such a hurry? Before she went to Jinghua City, we were already planning to go there, but we didn't have a suitable item. Now that we have everything, plus fellow Daoist Xiao and that person, the 5 of us should be able to return with the treasure. If fellow Daoist Xiao doesn't join us, our chances are reduced by 40%. I'm sorry, fellow Daoist Ruo. Xiao Hua didn't delay, he cupped his hands and said, I really have something important to do, I can't take such a big risk to go there. Again, if the 4 of you are interested, you can wait for me. Of course, if the 4 of you are in a hurry, you can go first and pretend that I never came. Of course, I won't reveal this matter. Also, when he spoke up to hear, Xiao Hua hesitated slightly, and then he reminded, moreover, this Xiao means that it wouldn't be too late to go when you have absolute confidence. Fellow Daoist Xiao. Ruo Daohong was really strange, and she could see that she must have told Xiao Hua the location of the mysterious place. That's why Xiao Hua wanted to leave and even reminded her. Unfortunately, Xiao Hua only said to be careful and only said to leave, he didn't mention anything about the dangerous place. Shi Wuming wanted to stop Xiao Hua, but he looked at Ruo Daohong and knew that even with the 2 of them, they didn't have much confidence. He could only follow behind Ruo Daohong, secretly complaining about Xiao Hua's lack of loyalty. Seeing that Xiao Hua was determined to leave, Ruo Daohong sighed and said, since fellow Daoist Xiao doesn't want to go, I'll send you out. If fellow Daoist Xiao finishes his important matter, you can come to 1000 Red Mountain again. If we haven't left yet, please come with us. Of course. Xiao Hua nodded, who doesn't like places with treasures? If Xiao Hua has time, I'll definitely come to visit fellow Daoist Ruo. All right. Shi Wuming smiled bitterly in his heart and followed Ruo Daohong to send Xiao Hua out. Unexpectedly, just as the 3 of them flew out of the 1000 Red Mountain range, they saw 2 figures flying towards them from the distance. In just a short moment, they got closer. Xiao Hua looked up and couldn't help but smile. That's right, one of them was naturally Mo Shan, and the other one was someone he knew. However, he never expected to encounter them here. This person was none other than Bai Fei, the disciple of the Changbai sect from Flowing Ice Gorge. Xiao Hua hadn't seen this fellow since he used the ocean-overturning seal to penetrate the spirit stone mine. However, Xiao Hua could see from this person that even if Xiao Hua were to perish in the Dao Sword battle, this person wouldn't perish. His method of judging the situation and seizing the opportunity to make money was the most unscrupulous and practical one in the cultivation world of the Dawn Rain continent. Therefore, when Xiao Hua saw that this short old man with a face full of wrinkles had actually advanced to the late stage of foundation establishment in just a few short years, he didn't find it strange at all. When Bai Fei saw Xiao Hua, his expression immediately changed slightly. Of course, This expression only lasted for an instant before it returned to normal. His flying figure immediately sped up, far surpassing Mo Shan. When he arrived in front of Xiao Hua, he bowed extremely respectfully and said, "Bai Fei greets Senior Brother Xiao. Senior Brother Xiao, thank you for saving me that year." Ah! Hearing Bai Fei, who was in the late stage of foundation establishment, actually call Xiao Hua Senior Brother, Mo Shan and the other two were greatly shocked. "Hehe, so it's you." Xiao Hua smiled and raised his hand to return the greeting. He said, "After parting for several years at Flowing Ice Gorge, fellow Daoist Bai's cultivation has advanced by leaps and bounds. I really can't catch up to you. I wouldn't dare." Bai Fei stood up respectfully and said with a smile, "No matter how much I cultivate, I'm afraid I can't even reach 50% of Senior Brother Xiao's cultivation. In front of Senior Brother Xiao, I'm not even worthy to carry your shoes." Immediately, Bai Fei looked at Mo Shan and said reproachfully, "Fellow Daoist Mo, since Senior Brother Xiao is here, on this Dawn Rain continent, you can go anywhere. There's no need to look for me. If I knew that Senior Brother Xiao was here, hehe, would I still need you to say so much?" This. How could Mo Shan know that Xiao Hua was so powerful in Bai Fei's eyes? He smiled bitterly and didn't know what to say. That's right, he had agreed to many of Bai Fei's conditions before he could invite him to Thousand Red Mountain. "Fellow Daoist Bai," Xiao Hua said, "I originally wanted to participate, but I have an urgent matter to attend to, so I can't take the risk for the time being. It won't be too late to go after I finish my matter. Of course, the specifics will depend on your own arrangements. I've already told fellow Daoist Ruo about it just now." "What? Senior Brother Xiao isn't going?" Bai Fei was stunned and looked extremely disappointed. "That's right, I'll take my leave." Xiao Hua didn't like Bai Fei's eagerness for success and cupped his hands, preparing to leave. "Okay." Bai Fei didn't expect Xiao Hua to leave just like that and was caught unprepared. "Oh, right." Xiao Hua flew a few feet and suddenly remembered something. He asked, "Did fellow Daoist Bai come from Meng country? Is there any news about the Great Dao Sword War? I'll let Senior Brother Xiao know that I didn't come from my sect." When Bai Fei heard Xiao Hua's question, he immediately replied respectfully, "After the war, I had some enlightenment and left my sect to train. I just arrived in Shi country not long ago. As for the Great Dao Sword War, Sky Patrol City has already fallen into the hands of sword cultivators. My Dao sect has already been defeated." "Oh, what about the participating disciples from various countries? Have they all returned to their respective sects?" Xiao Hua nodded and asked. This. Bai Fei rolled his eyes and said awkwardly, "Other than your sect and Mosang Mountain's disciples who fell into Sky Patrol City and became sword cultivators' captives, they still need to wait for further negotiations. Most of the other sect's disciples have already returned to their respective countries." Xiao Hua sighed, "My Imperial Thunder sect has finally been defeated." "That's right. What a pity." Bai Fei nodded. Imperial Thunder sect and Mosang Mountain's ambush in Sky Patrol City was an excellent move, but I didn't expect. It's already over. It's useless to talk about it. Xiao Hua waved his hand. "Fortunately, you and I have already escaped from the war." "Oh, and what are the cultivation levels of the disciples from various sects who stayed in Sky Patrol City? Is there any other news?" "Those who stayed in Sky Patrol City are of course Golden Core disciples," Bai Fei explained. "Although the war has ended, there are still many things to deal with after the war, so they need disciples to guard it. As for other things..." At this point, Bai Fei raised his eyebrows as if he thought of something. "Tai Ching sect seems to have invited my Changbai sect, Lian country's Utopia sect, Kunlun sect, and Shi country's Huanhua sect and Xuanyan sect to their sect. There seems to be something going on. I don't know the specifics, I only heard about it from one of my sect's elders." "That's strange." Xiao Hua smiled. "We've already been defeated, are we still going to ask for credit?" "Hehe, I'm definitely not asking for credit. Those who went to Tai Ching sect seemed to be Golden Core disciples, there were no nascent soul elders. I'm afraid they have something to discuss." Bai Fei smiled. "All right, fellow cultivator Bai, fellow cultivator Ruo, fellow cultivator Shi and fellow cultivator Mo, I'll take my leave. If fate wills it, we'll meet again. After Xiao Hua finished speaking, lightning flashed around his body, he cupped his hands slightly and rushed into the sky. After Xiao Hua left, Mo Shan asked in a low voice, "Fellow cultivator by this. Xiao Hua from Imperial Thunder Sect is only at the middle stage of Foundation establishment. How can you call him senior brother?" He, Bai Fei smiled faintly, looked into the distance and said, "Not to mention senior brother, I'm even willing to call him martial uncle." Ah! Everyone was dumbfounded and looked at Bai Fei strangely. Unexpectedly, Bai Fei did not say a word. Behind the cluster of wrinkles, his extremely shiny eyes seemed to have seen through time and space, and saw the moment when he was hiding in Flowing Ice Valley, when he stole a glance at Xiao Hua killing Qin Jian. Bai Fei and the other three were discussing how to go there, whether to wait for Xiao Hua to return or go there first. Xiao Hua's figure flew into the air, towards the nearest teleportation array, and flew in the air, muttering to himself. Naturally, he had never been to Luanshi's Fu Lin mountain range, and in his memory, he had never heard of this name. However, when Ruo Daohong said this strange name, he suddenly remembered that when he met Huang Yi in Tianmen Mountain's Huang family, he met a cultivator named Yu Chuan, who was a consecrator of Luanshi's Ma family. At that time, after Xiao Hua saved everyone, this moon mote saw that Xiao Hua's cultivation was profound and wanted to befriend Xiao Hua. Moreover, it could also be considered as repaying Xiao Hua's kindness. He revealed the location of an ancient ruin that he knew of to Xiao Hua, and that location was Fu Lin Mountain Range. Of course, Yu Chuan was a consecrator of Luanshi's Ma family, so he knew a lot more about Fu Lin Mountain Range than Ruo Daohong, and naturally told Xiao Hua in detail. Xiao Hua also knew more about the treasures inside than Ruo Daohong, and Xiao Hua knew even more that those things were useful for condensing core, but the dangers were even more severe. He didn't expect himself to condense core so quickly, and didn't intend to take the risk to look for opportunities, so he just perfunctorily explained to Yu Chuan. At this time, he had already condensed core, so he didn't want to take the risk. In particular, he had to quickly wake up Jiang Liu, so how could he go to Luanshi? Of course, Yu Chuan also made it clear that this ancient relic had been in Luanshi for many years, and very few people knew about it. Perhaps there were some useful things in the periphery that ordinary cultivators knew, but there were even more things that ordinary people didn't know about. Not only was it useful for Foundation establishment, it was also useful for nascent soul and even spirit severing stage. After waking up Jiang Liu, Xiao Hua was free, so naturally he was willing to take a look. This Bai Fei is really powerful. Xiao Hua thought as he flew, how many years has it been? He actually cultivated from middle Foundation establishment to late Foundation establishment. TSK, if Bai Fei can really get some treasures from the ancient relic in Luanshi, advancing to gold core is just around the corner. Oh right, there's also that fallen gold mountains jade token in the sword tomb. How old is it? It's already gold core. Damn it, I'm afraid it's already nascent soul. They're all extremely powerful. Li Zongbao, although he's called handsome for a while, compared to them, he's nothing. -11. Chapter 3072. Moreover, Hong Xia obtained the inheritance of the Phoenix, and Xue Xue also obtained the inheritance of the Lightning Beast. Since they have such opportunities, then on the Dawn Rain continent, the disciples of the other aristocratic families should also have such opportunities. Xiao Hua thought again, it seems that not only has the defeat of the Taoist sword war changed the situation of the entire Dawn Rain continent on the surface, but the change in the spiritual energy of heaven and earth has also secretly changed the situation of the entire cultivation world. I'm afraid that in less than 100 years, the situation of the cultivation world's dominant sects will change, and the sword cultivators and aristocratic families will also stand out. Even the heavenly demon sect, and this Xiao's fortune gate. I'm afraid they will also appear in front of everyone's eyes, right? This is an era where the winds and clouds gather. Xiao Hua sighed in loneliness, it's just that this Xiao is still rushing about for a living. Fortune gate. Xiao Hua thought again as he flew, I don't know what this Xiao's fortune gate is like now. I don't know how powerful Zhong Haoran is, and whether Fei Yunshu and the others are obedient or not. Perhaps after dealing with Liu Er's matter, this Xiao won't be in a hurry to go to the Meng Mountains, and will first take a look at the Fortune Gate. After getting the nearest transmission array, Xiao Hua naturally didn't need to go to the Lian country anymore, and after a little investigation, he turned around and went to the Meng country. Xiao Hua had already gone to the Meng country's Taiqing sect when he participated in the Feather Immortal Assembly, so he had some impression of it. However, at that time, Xiao Hua followed Zhen Qing and used a flying boat to go to the Ink Jiao Black Forest. Now that he thought about it, that should be the secret path that the Imperial Thunder sect knew. Now that Xiao Hua wanted to go to the Meng country, he should also go to the Haoming city to ask Yu Chen for the secret path through the Ink Jiao Black Forest. Xiao Hua's delay in the Thousand Red Mountains had caused him to fall behind Reverend Du Yi and kind Shengzi, and even Reverend Lei Meng flew in front of Xiao Hua. Of course, after the 3 Yuanian cultivators arrived at the nearest transmission array, they did not see any trace of Xiao Hua, so they hesitated slightly. However, thinking that Xiao Hua could disguise himself as John Doe, of course, he could also disguise himself as someone else. Therefore, after a little investigation, Immortal Du Yi and Shan Shengzi found the most likely target and hurriedly chased after him. On the other hand, after Thunder Tablet Spiritual Master made some inquiries, he suddenly realized that other than himself, there were 2 other unknown cultivators chasing after Xiao Hua. After recovering from his shock, Thunder Tablet Spiritual Master hurriedly found a nearby Imperial Thunder Sect disciple and sent a message to the sect. At the same time, he unhesitatingly chased after the 2 nascent soul cultivators. Of course, the 3 of them also had a backup plan and left an informant at the teleportation array. Xiao Hua didn't know that there were 3 nascent soul realm cultivators chasing after him, and he didn't disguise himself at all. After he appeared in the teleportation array and went to Haoming City, he was immediately discovered by others and hurriedly passed the message to the 3 nascent soul realm cultivators. However, the 3 nascent soul realm cultivators were so fast that by the time the message reached them, Xiao Hua had already teleported far away. Moreover, the most ridiculous thing was that when Xiao Hua flew to the vicinity of Haoming City, he felt that the news of him being expelled from the Imperial Thunder Sect should have already reached here. If he entered Haoming City with his original appearance, there might be some trouble, so he changed his appearance again. As a result, needless to say, when Immortal Du Yi and Shan Zongzi arrived at Haoming City, they lost track of Xiao Hua again. It was simply more of a hide-and-seek game than an ordinary hide-and-seek game. When the 2 nascent soul realm cultivators arrived at Haoming City, Xiao Hua had already arrived at the passage of the Mojiao Black Forest without anyone noticing. At this time, Xiao Hua was not wearing a camouflage robe, but an ordinary daoist robe. His figure was also ordinary. If it weren't for the fact that his cultivation level was still at the middle stage of foundation establishment, no one would pay much attention to him in a crowd. This time, the secret path that Xiao Hua took was different from the last time. As early as when Xiao Hua handed over the spirit stones in Haoming City, he had already asked clearly. After Mo Bao in the Mojiao Black Forest, after decades of stability, Haoming City had already found many safe secret paths in the Mojiao Black Forest. Of course, these secret paths were far and close. The far ones were naturally safe, but the close ones were more dangerous. For Xiao Hua, there was no danger. He just couldn't find the direction. Therefore, according to his stingy character, he still found the cheapest and the closest one. Today, he had been walking for about 20 days. According to the guards of Haoming City who sent him here, he would be able to pass through the Mojiao Black Forest in 1 or 2 days. From the Mojiao Black Forest to the Taiqing sect, and even the Changbai sect and other cultivation sects, Xiao Hua had exchanged spirit stones with the guards of Haoming City. Xiao Hua only needed to fly out of the Mojiao Black Forest to immediately fly to the Taiqing sect. After all, he had been delayed for more than a month, so Xiao Hua didn't know whether Han Zhu was still in the Taiqing sect. Of course, Xiao Hua also didn't know whether Han Zhu had gone to the Taiqing sect. He also planned to go from the Taiqing sect to the Kunlun sect in the Lian country. Looking at the gloomy Mojiao Black Forest and the faint ink spots outside the extremely hidden passage, Xiao Hua frowned and looked at the dozen or so cultivators in front of him. These cultivators all passed through the Mojao Black Forest with Xiao Hua. Except for the female cultivator in the middle of the group who was at the 11th level of qi refining, and the 2 cultivators behind Xiao Hua who were fascinated, the rest were all Foundation Establishment cultivators. There were even 3 late Foundation Establishment cultivators in front of the group. After all, this secret path was the most dangerous. Without some self-protection, no one dared to choose this path. As for the female cultivator, she should be somewhat secretive and seemed to be hiding from something. Like Xiao Hua, she was eager to pass through the Mojao Black Forest. Otherwise, she wouldn't have mingled with this group of Foundation Establishment cultivators. However, Xiao Hua had lost his previous curiosity and didn't want to pry into other people's secrets at all. He didn't even care which sects or families these cultivators belonged to. Before entering the Ink Cloud Black Forest, he had simply dealt with them. Perhaps Xiao Hua was just being perfunctory. Others could clearly see that after entering the Ink Cloud Black Forest, no one tried to worm their way into being friends with him. Other than that aura-refining female cultivator, perhaps Xiao Hua was the only one. As for the 2 fascinated cultivators behind Xiao Hua, they were hurriedly brought over by another Haoming city guard when the dozen or so people were preparing to enter the Mojao Black Forest. They didn't have the opportunity to introduce themselves to Xiao Hua and the others. Naturally, they wouldn't be together with Xiao Hua. However, this most dangerous secret path was actually safe and sound. Up until now, there wasn't even the slightest ripple. This was clearly somewhat out of Xiao Hua's expectations. Ari, there are still 2 more days. Xiao Hua narrowed his eyes and looked at the crowd, then raised his head to look at the distance of the secret path. He felt somewhat anxious. Not only because of Jiang Liu's matter, but also because of another extremely bad feeling in the bottom of his heart. It was as if a kind of danger was quietly approaching. As for what kind of danger it was, he really couldn't say. Before the Great Dao Sword battle, his enemy was the invisible mysterious person who sealed his middle dantian. After the Great Dao Sword battle, it could be said that the entire Huan country was his enemy. The battle was over, but the sword cultivators had entered. What about him? Unfortunately, he was expelled from the Imperial Thunder Sect. If the Void Heaven Sword School and the others wanted to take revenge, he could only run for his life. I'll endure it a little longer. In 1 more day, we'll be close to the edge of the Mojao Black Forest. At that time, I won't care about anything else. I'll just rush out on my own. There won't be any mistakes left or right. Xiao Hua inwardly made up his mind. In the past 20 days, the late Foundation Establishment cultivator leading the way had changed direction many times. Although Xiao Hua had a jade slip in his hand, he still couldn't grasp the direction. Moreover, he also knew that if he forcibly flew out halfway, it would affect the secret path. Xiao Hua wasn't ruthless enough to do that. With that thought, Xiao Hua narrowed his eyes and slowly flew with everyone. His mind slowly absorbed the insights from the several primordial spirits. Before the 3 primordial spirits went through the 3rd Gold Lightning Tribulation, each of them had already cultivated their own secret techniques. In fact, whether it was the efficiency or the feeling they transmitted back, it was completely different from after the 3rd Gold Lightning Tribulation. Now, each of the primordial spirits was like a complete copy of Xiao Hua. The speed at which they comprehended the secret techniques was very fast, and the things they transmitted back were also many. Moreover, these things were all comprehended by the primordial spirits. Xiao Hua's mind didn't need to think too much about it. He only needed to enjoy the wonderful feeling. Kchem. Just as Xiao Hua was enjoying himself, 2 whoosh-whoosh sounds came from behind him. 2 cultivators in camouflage clothes who had been lagging behind him moved at the same time. Fellow Daoist Zhong, don't worry. We're just going to the front. Xiao Hua had just opened his eyes and urged his magic power to guard against any sneak attacks from these 2 cultivators when a slightly hoarse voice sounded. En. Xiao Hua answered coldly. Without turning his head, his figure stopped in mid-air. Sure enough, the 2 cultivators didn't pass by Xiao Hua's left and right sides, but flew by Xiao Hua's left side one after the other. They didn't seem to want to attack. It's a bit strange. Xiao Hua waited for the 2 to pass by. Xiao Hua flew up again and looked at the two's backs while secretly thinking. However, at this time, they were already close to the edge of the Ink Jiao Black Forest. Even if Mo Jiao appeared, Xiao Hua wouldn't care about any changes. Excuse me, Tilda. After passing by Xiao Hua, the two cultivators shouted. They also passed by several middle-stage foundation establishment cultivators and were about to approach the qi refining female cultivator in the middle. The female cultivator became more and more uneasy after passing through the Ink Jiao Black Forest. Now that she heard the movement behind her, her face changed greatly. Especially when she saw that it was actually the two cultivators in camouflage clothes. They were the people she had been worried about for a long time. She didn't wait for the two to come closer and hurriedly increased her flying speed, wanting to overtake the three cultivators in front of her. However, the three cultivators in front of her were originally in a group. They were flying very close to each other, occupying more than half of the entire secret path. They were discussing something in a low voice. The female cultivator flew away at the same time. The three cultivators just turned around and didn't have time to get out of the way. -11. Chapter 3073. The female aura refining cultivator fled in panic, seemingly not knowing where to go. She didn't dare to collide with the foundation establishment cultivators and could only rush out of the secret passage. With a loud crackling sound, the female cultivator's left arm came out of the secret passage. Bursts of black flames appeared on the female cultivator's arm, and countless ink sand rushed into it. The female cultivator's body suddenly fell, obviously unable to resist the corrosion of the ink sand. The foundation establishment cultivator blocking the way was also shocked and hastily dodged forward. The female cultivator was delighted and hurriedly rushed into the secret passage again. However, it was only for a moment. The brilliance around the female cultivator's body dimmed, especially her left arm, which was charred black, like a broken armor. However, this armor was extremely heavy, and the female cultivator's left arm was simply unable to move. The female cultivator didn't dare to be negligent. While trying her best to fly forward, she clapped her right hand, and a thumb-sized fire bead appeared in her hand. She slightly activated her magic power, and it immediately turned into a ball of fire, rushing into her left arm. Tilda with a violent sound, the ink sand that invaded the female cultivator's body was immediately blocked by the fire. As the fire rushed into the fire bead turned into a charred black color in the blink of an eye, without a trace of fire. Looking at the female cultivator's arm, the daoist robe had already disappeared, revealing a patch of grayish-black skin. It was no longer the tender white skin of a female cultivator. However, the female cultivator didn't pay attention to this at all. When the true qi in her meridians could smoothly flow, she immediately flew several meters forward. When she got close to the two foundation establishment middle-stage cultivators, she quickly shouted, "Senior Fu, Senior Liu, Junior is a disciple of the Ardent Fire Mountain, and is the Fire Chilene's maid. Seniors, please help me. Fire Chilene." Xiao Hua clearly saw the female cultivator's series of actions from afar. He didn't expect the female cultivator to be able to remove the ink sand from her body. That fire bead was clearly prepared beforehand. When he heard that the female cultivator was the Fire Chilene's maid, he was even more stunned. He thought of that loathsome, yet pitiful, infatuated man. You. The two foundation establishment middle-stage cultivators were clearly caught unprepared. They raised their eyes and looked at the two maize cultivators who were already closing in behind them. The two seniors are elders of the Mo Ling sect. Before the Great Dao Sword battle, they had come to our blazing fire mountain to visit the three ancestors. The female cultivator hurriedly said, "At that time, our young master received the two seniors in the fire spirit hall. Furthermore, I accompanied the two seniors in the hall for several days and earnestly requested the three ancestors to meet the two seniors." Oh! All of the mid-stage foundation establishment cultivators looked at each other helplessly. The slightly plump Senior Fu on the left said, "Senior Brother Liu, this female cultivator is right. It looks like we have no choice but to take action." "That's right. Fellow Daoist Fire Cheline treated us well. Since this female cultivator is fellow Daoist Fire Cheline's servant, we naturally can't ignore her. Otherwise, how would we face the Fire Cheline in the future? As he spoke, the cultivator called Senior Liu swept his gaze over everyone. Obviously, these words were said for everyone to hear. This junior thanks the two seniors. Seeing this, the female cultivator was overjoyed. After expressing her thanks, she hurriedly hid behind the two. As for the cultivator surnamed Liu, he calmly looked at the two maize cultivators approaching and cupped his hands. Fellow Taoists, I am Liu Yu of the Moling sect. This is my junior brother Fu Jie. I don't know what kind of grievances you have with this woman, but since I know the Blazing Fire Cheline of the Blazing Fire Mountain and have received the favor of the three elders of the Blazing Fire Mountain, even though the three elders have already fallen, we can't forget their kindness. As for the grievances between this woman and the two of you, please talk about them later. Boom. Liu Yu's words were like a bolt of lightning that struck Xiao Hua. The three elders of the Blazing Fire Mountain have already fallen? Could it be, during the Great Dao Sword Battle? Those three elders were early nascent soul stage cultivators. They were also experts in joint attacks. Ordinary second stage sword transformation stage cultivators couldn't possibly be their match. How could they have fallen just like that? Although the three elders of the Blazing Fire Mountain had pressured Xiao Hua and Xue Xue, they had also given Xiao Hua some favor. However, Xiao Hua had also received some kindness from Ardent Fire Mountain. Although this kindness was repaid by Ardent Fire Mountain to Xiao Hua still remembered it in his heart. Now that he heard that three nascent soul cultivators had fallen, how could he not be shocked and heartbroken? The two maize cultivators clearly didn't expect Liu Yu to really lend a helping hand. Their figures were slightly stunned, but immediately, one of the cultivators said, Fellow Daoist Liu, this matter has nothing to do with the Moling sect. Moreover, the two of you only met the Fire Cheline once. Why do you have to forcefully stand up for this bit of fate? Fellow Daoist's words are wrong. Fu Jie said indifferently, the grace of a drop of water should be repaid with a gushing spring. That day, the three elders of the Blazing Fire Mountain gave us extremely useful pointers. If we don't treat the younger generation of the Blazing Fire Mountain well, wouldn't we be worse than pigs and dogs? Besides, this woman has already found me. If I don't stand up for her, I'm afraid I won't be able to meet other fellow Taoists in the future. Fellow Daoist should understand this situation. Don't force us to act and ruin each other's faces. Forget it. When the maize cultivator heard this, he pulled off the maize cultivator, revealing a thin figure and a somewhat pale face of a middle-stage foundation establishment cultivator. The person next to him also revealed himself. He was an early-stage foundation establishment cultivator who looked somewhat similar to this old man. I am Hua Chong, and this is my younger brother, Hua Ming. The middle-stage foundation establishment cultivator cupped his hands and said, both of us brothers are disciples of the Blazing Fire Mountain. Ah! Liu Yu and Fu Jie were stunned. The people who had stopped in midair to watch the show were also stunned. Then, a trace of a smile appeared on their faces. I originally didn't want to reveal my true appearance. I also didn't want to make this matter big. Hua Chong explained, after all, this is a family matter of the Blazing Fire Mountain, and it's a scandal. I only wanted to quietly resolve this matter. But since fellow Daoist Liu has stood up for justice, I can only stand up and explain to fellow Daoist Liu. My Blazing Fire Mountain is very grateful for fellow Daoist Liu's righteousness, but I hope that fellow Daoist Liu won't fall into this slut's trap and affect the friendship between Moling sect and my Blazing Fire Mountain. Senior Liu. The female cultivator said anxiously, this junior won't make things difficult for senior. You don't need to care about the matters of my Blazing Fire Mountain. You only need to protect this junior. When we get out of Jiao Black Forest, my young master will be waiting outside. Fellow Daoist Liu. Hua Chong smiled and cupped his hands towards all the foundation establishment cultivators. He said, this is a private matter of my Blazing Fire Mountain. Fellow Taoists, the two of us brothers haven't acted yet because we're in the secret path of Jiao Black Forest. If something were to happen, it wouldn't be good for everyone. Moreover, In front of everyone. I don't want to do it, so I've been dragging it out until now. So, please continue on your own path. There are still a few days before we can pass through this secret path. It's safe before, so don't let anything happen at this final stage. Are you going to leave or not? The 3 late-stage Foundation establishment cultivators at the front became impatient. He already said that this is a private matter of the Blazing Fire Mountain. Why are you poking your nose into other people's business? After they finished speaking, the 3 late-stage Foundation establishment cultivators flew in front of them. Although Hua Chong's words were very humble, there was a hint of threat in them. Obviously, they didn't have enough confidence to capture this female cultivator in front of the other middle-stage Foundation establishment cultivators, so they had endured until today. Seeing that they were about to reach the end of the secret path, they had no choice but to take action. Since they dared to take action, they must have something to rely on. Although the 3 middle-stage Foundation establishment cultivators were able to capture the 2 ardent Inferno Mountain cultivators, they were in the secret passage, after all. Just by fighting, they would be unable to make ends meet. Besides, if the ardent Inferno Mountain cultivators were to use any powerful magic tools, the secret passage would be affected. Black sand was not something that Foundation establishment cultivators could deal with. In addition to ink sand, fighting could also attract ink jiao, which was even more terrifying than ink sand. Seeing the late-stage Foundation establishment cultivators take action, the Foundation establishment cultivators in front of Liu Yu and Fu Jie hesitated slightly, but they also urged their magic power and quickly left. Who didn't know the dangers of this secret path? Everyone understood the principle of when the city gate is on fire, the fish in the moat will suffer. Senior Liu Tilda, the female cultivator, became anxious and shouted, "This Hua Chong and Hua Ming are no longer disciples of the Blazing Fire Mountain. They betrayed the Blazing Fire Mountain when the 3 ancestors of my clan died." Oh! Liu Yu and Fu Jie were extremely embarrassed and hesitant, but when they heard this, they sneered, "Fellow Daoist Hua, is that girl right?" Alas! Hua Chong sighed and cupped his hands, "Fellow Daoist Liu, since this slut is so shameless and leaked the private matters of the Blazing Fire Mountain, I can only blame her. In that case, I can only expose my own shortcomings." Seeing that Hua Chong was about to speak, the cultivators behind him became unhappy and coldly said, "Fellow Daoist Hua, if you want to complain, please get out of the way. We have no interest in the matters of the Blazing Fire Mountain, and we have even less interest in listening to your secret." "Ian, it's all I's fault," Hua Chong said with a smile. "I was a bit anxious." With that, Hua Chong and Hua Ming moved to the sides of the secret path, revealing a gap. "Seniors." The female cultivator became anxious and suddenly shouted, "Don't go. The young master of the Blazing Fire Mountain, Fire Chelin, is right in front of the secret path. Once this junior leaves the secret path, there will definitely be a great treasure to thank you." Unfortunately, not to mention the late-stage Foundation establishment cultivators in front of her, even the 2 middle-stage Foundation establishment cultivators in front of Xiao Hua ignored her and directly flew between Hua Chong and Hua Ming. Water essence, ice essence. The female cultivator hurriedly shouted, "This junior knows the whereabouts of the water essence, ice essence. If any senior can send this junior out of the secret path, this junior will definitely give half a drop of water essence, ice essence to thank you." Damn it! Hua Chong didn't expect that the female cultivator would be so desperate and couldn't help but curse inwardly. He waved his hand and was about to grab the female cultivator. Peng tilde with a light sound, Liu Yu hurriedly moved and blocked in front of the female cultivator. He also waved his Daoist robe and blocked Hua Chong's force to the side. With just this one collision, the originally stable secret path suddenly began to ripple. The grayish-black sand around the secret path shook violently, as if thousands of flying insects had smelled blood. -11. Chapter 3074. Her. One of the 3 late Foundation establishment cultivators, who had already flown several dozen meters away, suddenly stopped and turned around to look at him. Although he didn't approach, he was clearly interested in the water essence, ice essence. Even the two late-stage nascent soul cultivators behind him stopped and looked over with interest, as if they were ready to attack at any time. "Fellow Daoist Hua," Liu Yu said with a smile, "why are you in such a hurry? Since your ardent Inferno Mountain has something good, why can't you share it with us?" Then, he turned to look at the late-stage Foundation establishment cultivators who stopped in the distance and asked, "Moreover, I'm also curious about the ardent Inferno Mountain. After all, I have some friendship with the ardent Inferno Mountain, and I sympathize with the three elders of the ardent Inferno Mountain." Hu Chong glanced at the crowd. There were also a few cultivators behind him who were hesitating. After all, a treasure like the water essence ice essence wasn't something that could be obtained so easily. Although there was only half a drop of this treasure, it was extremely beneficial for body tempering and special cultivation technique. Didn't Daoist Mad Heaven of the Imperial Thunder sect rely on half a drop of earth crystal yarrow milk to become a nascent soul master? Who would easily give up such an opportunity? Fellow Taoists. Hu Chong clenched his teeth and said, "My ardent Inferno Mountain does have the water essence ice essence. However, it's already in the hands of I and the others. Although this bitch knows the news, she can't take it out. Fellow Taoists, don't listen to her words." Fellow Daoist Hua. Xiao Hua said indifferently, "This girl said she has news. You said you have the water essence ice essence, but who should we believe? You might as well tell us what happened in the ardent Inferno Mountain. This old man is very curious." "All right." Hu Chong looked around and saw that the cultivators flying around had all stopped and were quietly watching the development of the situation. However, it seemed that other than Xiao Hua, the others didn't care too much about what happened in the ardent Inferno Mountain. As for Xiao Hua's suggestion, it gave them time to prepare, so they didn't raise any objections. Then, Hu Chong vaguely and briefly explained the situation in the ardent Inferno Mountain. This matter was not out of Xiao Hua's expectations. Since this ardent fire mountain had 3 elders, then they must be divided into 3 branches. Although these 3 elders of the ardent fire mountain were compatriots for 3 lifetimes and were like one person, the disciples under them were not one person. When the 3 elders were alive, all the conflicts would naturally not be exposed, and everyone would be obedient. Although the 3 old men understood the hidden dangers of ardent fire mountain, they did not care about it. Their temperaments were somewhat irritable to begin with. Furthermore, they had just advanced to the middle stage of the nascent soul realm. There was still a long way to go before they could reorganize the ardent fire mountain and leave behind a backup plan. Even if there was a great battle between Dao and Sword here, the 3 elders did not care. After all, there had been countless battles before, and there were very few cases of nascent soul masters dying. Even if there were deaths, most of them were of the early stage of the original level. How could there be a mid-stage of the original level? Not to mention the 3 of them who were proficient in joint attacks. In fact, this was indeed the case. The 3 of them were also regarded as the strongest attacks by Zun Yunzi of the Splendid Flower sect to be used against sword cultivators in the gambling match. Unfortunately, they encountered the mysterious fairy Luo Hua. The 3 nascent soul middle stage cultivators had almost no power to fight back in front of fairy Luo Hua when she revealed her true form. They could only watch helplessly as they were beaten to death, without even leaving a last word. Although Ardent Fire Mountain was a famous cultivation sect, when they suddenly lost 3 mid-stage of the original level, it was immediately like a flock of wild geese that had lost their leader. Before leaving the Sky Patrol City, a group of Golden Core disciples began to have their own plans. Fortunately, when they were in the Sky Patrol City, there were other original level nascent soul masters to deter these disciples, so they did not dare to be too arrogant. After the first batch of disciples from Ardent Fire Mountain evacuated from the Sky Patrol City, the entire Ardent Fire Mountain immediately fell apart. Like monkeys scattering when the tree fell, they were divided into 3 factions. Needless to say, behind these 3 factions, there were traces of other cultivation sects and families in the country of Shi. It could be said that after the Great Dao Sword War, the Dao sect suffered great losses, and so did the Ardent Fire Mountain. Hua Hibiscus and Hua Chalene were not from the same faction, so naturally, they could not help but be involved in the waves. The female cultivator in front of them was not from the same faction as Hu Chong and Hu Ming. The fight and competition between them had gradually begun to heat up. Hu Chong captured this female cultivator for some scarce resources in the Ardent Fire Mountain sect. Of course, Hu Chong could not explain the matter in detail, let alone his purpose. However, it was obvious that no matter what, this was the internal affairs of Ardent Fire Mountain, and it was not suitable for outsiders to interfere, unless the outsiders had other ideas. Tilda Xiao Hua listened and sneered. I understand now. In other words, your Ardent Fire Mountain has the water element ice pith, but you don't know where it is. However, this girl knew where the water essence ice pith was. But the location of the water element ice pith has been seized by you? Is that so? Hu Chong was a bit embarrassed, but when he saw that Xiao Hua was alone, he lightly said, this water element ice pith was only obtained by the 3 old ancestors of my Ardent Fire Mountain by chance. As for whether they used it all or not, I don't know. But if there is, then it must be in our hands. You only know where the water element ice pith is, so it is meaningless. Then, he coldly glared at the female cultivator and said, this slut is just spouting nonsense. How can her words be fulfilled? Of course, I do not dare to make any more promises. Hu Chong pondered for a moment, then looked at Hu Ming and said, if we can really obtain the water essence ice pith from this slut, then fellow Taoists can obtain a little. As for how much, this poor Daoist cannot guarantee. Hearing this, the many cultivators who had taken advantage of the time when Xiao Hua was asking about the situation of Ardent Fire Mountain to come up with a plan. Hu Chong's words were clearly much more realistic than what the female cultivator had said. What was the water element ice pith? How could they casually give everyone half a drop? Moreover, the water element ice pith was not in the hands of this female cultivator. Most importantly, this female cultivator had never revealed her name from the beginning to the end. Even to Liu Yu and Fu Jie, she only claimed to be the Fire Chaline's maid. Fellow Daoist Hua. The 2 cultivators in front of Xiao Hua said, as long as we don't interfere, will we be able to obtain the water element ice pith? That's right. Hu Chong was overjoyed when he saw that someone had loosened up. He nodded and said, fellow Daoist only needs to send your name to I and I will give you the communication talisman. After half a year, my Ardent Fire Mountain will be stable. Fellow Daoist can go to Ardent Fire Mountain. Even if you do not obtain the water element ice pith, I will still reward you handsomely. Good Tilda. The 2 middle stage foundation establishment cultivators did not seem to be interested in the water element ice pith. After a few words, Hu Chong took out 2 communication talismans and handed them to the 2. The 2 immediately flew over and no longer cared about this matter. What about you 2 fellow Taoists? Hu Chong looked at Liu Yu and said with a smile that did not reach his eyes, I have already said all the good things. Mo Ling sect has a good relationship with my Ardent Fire Mountain. I do not want to cause any more problems. This was already the 2nd time Hu Chong reminded Liu Yu. This. Liu Yu was really hesitant. At this moment, he was somewhat regretting that he had been too rash. Seeing Liu Yu hesitate, Hu Chong smiled and turned to look at Xiao Hua behind him and asked with a smile. Me? Xiao Hua was also in a difficult position. He knew Hua Furong and Fire Chaline, but this Hu Chong did not say whether they were Hua Furong's subordinates or other people's subordinates. Moreover, this was indeed the internal affairs of Ardent Fire Mountain. Although Xiao Hua wanted to obtain the water element ice pith, if he wanted to obtain it from the hands of these people, he was afraid that he would not be able to obtain it. Without waiting for Xiao Hua to speak, the late-stage foundation establishment cultivator laughed and said, Fellow Daoist Hua, this old man believes your words. We should not interfere with the internal affairs of your Ardent Fire Mountain. However, since this girl asked for help from us, how can we ignore it? We naturally do not care about the internal affairs of Ardent Fire Mountain. You can do whatever you want. However, this old man still understands the most basic tenderness for the fairer sect. Fellow Daoist. Hu Chong was most afraid of the 3 late-stage foundation establishment cultivators in front of him. Seeing this cultivator actually speak, His complexion unconsciously changed. "Little girl." The cultivator looked at the female cultivator and said, "This old man is very interested in the water element ice pith. However, the three of us need 2 drops. Good." The female cultivator saw that Liu Yu was somewhat hesitant and her face unconsciously turned pale. However, now that she saw the 3 late-stage foundation establishment cultivators speak, she did not hesitate at all and nodded in agreement. Xiao Hua smiled. He had already seen that although these 3 late-stage foundation establishment cultivators coveted the water element ice pith, their plans were obviously not limited to this. No one would casually agree to an anonymous stranger's request based on a promise without any evidence. Presumably, these 3 late-stage foundation establishment cultivators really wanted to interfere with the internal affairs of Ardent Fire Mountain. 3 fellow Taoists. Hu Chong narrowed his eyes and coldly said, "This Hua will say it one last time. This is my Ardent Fire Mountain's internal affairs. So what if it's Ardent Fire Mountain's internal affairs?" Another late-stage foundation establishment cultivator angrily said, "You attacked and killed a female chi refining cultivator here and even threatened us with the secret passage of Inkcloud Black Forest. Can't we do anything about it?" Hu Chong clenched his teeth and patted his storage pouch. He really took out 2 bright red things the size of duck eggs from his storage pouch and fiercely said, "3 fellow Taoists, this Hua originally did not want to shed all pretense of cordiality with you. Previously, I've already endured for several dozen days. Now that I've finished speaking, then, this Hua can only apologize." Flame Thunderbolt. The female cultivator was obviously very familiar with the magic tools of Ardent Fire Mountain. She cried out involuntarily, "You actually dare to take this thing out?" Obviously, this female cultivator's experience was insufficient. If she did not say anything, others might not have noticed, but her exclamation was enough to make others feel greatly alarmed. Although Xiao Hua did not know what this flame thunderbolt was, he understood that its power was definitely not small. The 3 late-stage foundation establishment cultivators and even Liu Yu and Fu Jie's complexion greatly changed when they saw the flame thunderbolt. -11. Chapter 3075. If fellow Daoist is related to my Ardent Fire Mountain, then you should know the power of this item, Hu Chong coldly said, "Not to mention that this is the Ink Shadow Black Forest. Even if it was nearby, with Ai's magic power, none of the fellow Taoists would be able to dodge it. Now, even if there is a fellow Daoist who can dodge it, hey." After Hu Chong finished speaking, Hua Ming also took the opportunity to speak, "Fellow Taoists, what my senior brother said before still stands. If any fellow Daoist is not willing to interfere with the internal affairs of my Ardent Fire Mountain, please leave immediately. I will send you a communication talisman." Hearing Hua Ming's words, the faces of the cultivators relaxed. The others who hadn't spoken until now all raised their hands. Hua Ming hurriedly sent out a communication talisman, and the cultivators activated their magic power and flew forward. Only Liu Yu, Fu Jie, the 3 late foundation establishment cultivators, and Xiao Hua behind Hu Chong didn't move. "Fellow Daoist, do you still want to stay here?" Hua Ming looked at Xiao Hua. He didn't think Xiao Hua was a threat. "Forget it." Before Xiao Hua could speak, Liu Yu sighed and said, "This is the internal affairs of your Ardent Fire Mountain. I have no reason to interfere." After he finished speaking, he glanced at Fu Jie. The 2 of them activated their magic power and stopped Hua Ming's communication talisman from flying forward. "This old man doesn't care." Xiao Hua smiled and said, "However, fellow Daoist Hua, you still have to be careful. I will fly over now." "You must not." With that, Xiao Hua's figure slowly moved and flew between Hu Chong and Hua Ming. At this moment, the 3 late foundation establishment cultivators also began to send voice transmissions. Clearly, they were also stunned by Hu Chong's method of mutual destruction. The female cultivator bit her lips and her eyes were filled with despair. Wang tilde. Just as Xiao Hua approached the Hu Chong, an indescribable rumbling sound suddenly came from the side of the Hu Chong. An extremely powerful impact force was generated at the same time, as if someone had suddenly activated their mana to attack the Hu Chong. Hu Chong held the flame thunderbolt in his hand and looked at Xiao Hua with extreme caution. At the same time, because he couldn't use his divine sense freely, he glanced at the 3 late Foundation establishment stage cultivators beside him from time to time, fearing that Xiao Hua or the 3 cultivators would launch a sneak attack. Hu Chong's gaze was fixed on Xiao Hua as he unleashed this attack. When the attack reached Hu Chong like several huge stone pillars, he didn't hesitate to activate the magic power in his hand. He threw a flame thunderbolt at the 3 late Foundation establishment cultivators in front of him and another one at Xiao Hua. Damn it! Xiao Hua had a bad feeling in his heart when he heard the force and sound. However, this movement was too strange and sudden. His figure was also knocked askew by the impact, so he didn't have time to use any means to restrain Hu Chong and Hu Ming. Seeing that Hu Chong's first reaction was to use the flame thunderbolt, Xiao Hua didn't hesitate to control his body and use the Devil Realm's concealment technique to disappear from Hu Chong and Hu Ming's sight. After Hu Chong threw the flame thunderbolt, he discovered that the other late Foundation establishment cultivators in the distance were also in the same position as him. Their figures were also askew. The strange movement wasn't caused by a late Foundation establishment cultivator at all. What was special was that the originally stable secret path was like a ribbon floating in water under the impact. It was instantly torn apart and turned into several segments. The scattered ink sand around the secret path poured in without any explanation, and it looked like it was about to drown everyone. As the saying goes, fortune doesn't come in pairs and misfortune doesn't come alone. The moment the black sand poured in, the 2 flame thunderbolts also erupted. A bright red flame flashed, and like the jealous gaze of a lover, it enveloped the space within a radius of several tens of jong. With a rumbling sound, an explosion comparable to Xiao Hua's fire talisman spread out in all directions with Hu Chong as the center. The flame thunderbolt was extremely powerful. Although Hu Chong and Hu Ming's bodies were already flashing with a red brilliance, the brilliance disappeared in a flash within the flames. Under the brilliance, the 2's daoist robes were torn to shreds in the blink of an eye. Then, dozens of pieces of armor flew out from the robes and fluttered like butterflies. The butterflies' colorful wings were the 2's flesh and blood that were gradually being torn apart. Hu Chong and Hu Ming, the 2 mid-Foundation establishment cultivators, couldn't withstand the power of the flame thunderbolt, so the female cultivator from Ardent Fire Mountain was even more unable to withstand it. The moment the flame thunderbolt's explosion arrived, the female cultivator's body was directly pressed to the bottom of the secret path. However, although the female cultivator had already fainted within the flames, thin flames flickered around her body. These flames flickered like a candle. Although they could be extinguished at any time, they were so tenacious that they didn't disappear even after the female cultivator rushed out of the secret path and landed on the ground. Damn it! A few feet to the left of the female cultivator, Xiao Hua's figure flashed out. His body was also flashing with an intense brilliance. Clearly, he had been forced out of the secret path by the flame thunderbolt. As soon as Xiao Hua's figure appeared, he hurriedly looked around. Fortunately, the black sand around the secret path had been pushed back by the flame thunderbolt, so there wasn't any black sand around Xiao Hua. Damn it! Xiao Hua's gaze swept over the several dozen feet of flames above his head and the black sand that was like a huge wave crashing against the shore. Although this black sand wasn't as powerful as the black sand from last time, Xiao Hua understood that the secret path had most likely disappeared. If he was trapped by this black sand, there would be a lot of trouble. Therefore, he cursed and hurriedly used the earth escape technique to escape like before. It was at this moment that the female cultivator from Ardent Fire Mountain landed not far from him. Hey! Flame! Flame hibiscus! When Xiao Hua swept a glance over, he was immediately stunned. The female cultivator now didn't have the slightly pretty appearance from before. Instead, she revealed an appearance similar to flame hibiscus. However, in just a moment, Xiao Hua understood that this female cultivator was definitely not flame hibiscus. She should be the same as flame hibiscus, a descendant of the 3 elders of Ardent Fire Mountain. Sigh, really, there are thousands of kinds of beauty, but as for ugliness, it seems there's only one kind. Xiao Hua didn't have any hesitation. He rolled up the sleeve of his daoist robe and took the female cultivator, who was practically indistinguishable from flame hibiscus, into his hand. He once again glanced at the black sand that had already closed in the blink of an eye. Knowing that he didn't have any extra time to save others, he immediately urged his magic power and escaped into the ground, escaping out of ink cloud black forest. Not long after Xiao Hua's figure disappeared, countless amounts of black sand rushed over, annihilating everything within 100 feet of the secret passage. Even before the black sand settled down, countless bursting sounds came from nearby, like bubbles bursting out from the mud in the sea, rising and falling one after another, the sounds unceasingly resounding. Following the appearance of these bursting sounds, all of the black sand within a range of about 10 miles was stirred up, and all of the black wood was blasted apart. Wave after wave of intense fluctuations were emitted from these bursting sounds. Not only did it wantonly spread out within 10 miles, it also unbridled rushed to the surroundings of ink cloud black forest, causing the entire place to be in chaos. Even the group of Mo Jiao was shocked by the sudden change. They stayed far away and did not dare to get close to it. After waiting for nearly an hour, a loud boom sounded, as if the heavens and earth were falling apart. A black spot appeared on the ground, and this black spot instantly expanded, like a whirlpool turning into a black hole. Inside the black hole, rays of black and white brilliance rotated like a wave wheel. Whoosh! A gust of wind blew, and a figure rushed out from the black hole. Ha ha ha! Another loud and clear laugh sounded. I finally rushed into the 9th heaven. The figure actually laughed loudly and rushed into the black sand. A day later, at a place a few miles away from the original exit of the secret path, a figure rushed out from the ground. Once this figure appeared in the air, he did not stop at all. He flew close to the ground and only stopped abruptly after flying for several hundred feet. Looking at the tall and thin figure, if it wasn't Xiao Hua who had already recovered his original appearance, who else could it be? Alas, I finally rushed out. Xiao Hua looked at the sunlight sprinkling on his body, and then looked behind him, at the ink Jiao black forest, and sighed. Fortunately, I'm already very close to the edge. Otherwise, with this Xiao's ability, it would really be difficult to rush out from inside. That's right. Although the place where the secret path disappeared was only 1 or 2 days away from the ink cloud black forest, and Xiao Hua's earth escape technique was extremely fast, it had taken Xiao Hua a long time to cover such a short distance, and he had almost rushed into the depths of the ink cloud black forest several times. Come out! Xiao Hua shook his daoist robe, and the female cultivator that he had been holding in his hand was shaken to the ground. Xiao Hua stretched out his hand, and placed his finger on the female cultivator's wrist. After a brief inspection, he pressed his hand between the female cultivator's armpits. NNN. The female cultivator groaned, and unexpectedly opened her eyes. This female cultivator was only knocked out by the impact of the flame thunderbolt and the strange changes in the ink Jiao black forest. Naturally, Xiao Hua already knew that this female cultivator must be wearing a protective armor, otherwise, she would have been torn apart like Hua Chong and Hua Ming. Just as the female cultivator opened her eyes, she was immediately forced to close them due to the intense sunlight. Moreover, at the same time, the female cultivator very cleverly urged her magic power, wanting to fly. Unfortunately, her flight talisman had already been torn apart by the impact of the ink Jiao black forest, so how could she still fly? The female cultivator's figure struggled on the ground, and immediately jumped up vigorously. With a slight glance, her gaze fell on Xiao Hua's face. It was very obvious that Xiao Hua's face was extremely unfamiliar to her. He was not one of the dozen cultivators who had passed through the secret path with her. Immediately, the female cultivator did not hurry to salute, but naturally touched her face with her hand, as if to confirm something. Senior. When the female cultivator's hand left her forehead, the female cultivator slightly urged her magic, and after sensing Xiao Hua's cultivation, she hurriedly bowed and respectfully said, "Junior." After saying these 2 words, the female cultivator's face suddenly revealed a shocked expression, and she cried out, You are Xiao Hua?" When the 2 words Xiao Hua came out, the female cultivator was so frightened that her face turned pale. She actually looked around, as if she wanted to escape. -11. Chapter 3076. Who are you? How do you know this old man's name? Xiao Hua frowned and asked coldly. This junior is a disciple of Blazing Fire Mountain. The female cultivator realized that there was no one else around. She panicked but slowly calmed down. She hurriedly bowed and said, because my Blazing Fire Mountain has always had battle reports from Sky Patrol City. Not only Martial Uncle Xiao, but also Martial Uncle Li Zongbao, Martial Uncle Xiao Mao, and Fairy Hong Xia's information and appearance. Moreover, this junior is Hua Furong's maid. I often hear Miss talk about Martial Uncle Xiao, so this junior recognized Martial Uncle Xiao when I saw him. Oh! Xiao Hua's face showed a smile. He thought that this female cultivator would repeat what she said in the secret path, but he did not expect her to become Hua Furong's maid. Was this not a lie? However, Xiao Hua did not expose her. Instead, he asked curiously, since you are a disciple of Blazing Fire Mountain and Hua Furong's maid, why did you come to Inkcloud Black Forest alone? And you fainted in the secret path? If I did not pass through the secret path, wouldn't you be covered by the Inkcloud Black Forest? Swallowed by the Inkcloud Black Forest? The female cultivator was a little surprised. She did not know how long she had fainted and did not know if this was the original exit of the secret path. After thinking for a while, she smiled and said, this junior naturally wanted to pass through the secret path to Meng country. But I did not expect that when I reached the edge of Inkcloud Black Forest, I encountered a change and the secret path was destroyed. If this junior was not wearing the secret armor, I am afraid that I would have been buried in Inkcloud Black Forest. I could not wait for Martial Uncle Xiao's rescue. Ah! Are you going to Meng country? Xiao Hua was shocked and said, But this is Shi country. This Xiao is returning to Shi country from Meng country. It seems that this Xiao has brought you to the wrong place. What? This is Shi country? How is that possible? The female cultivator was also stunned. She looked around in disbelief and said puzzledly, Martial Uncle Xiao, this scenery should be Meng country. How can it be Shi country? Hihi, yes. Xiao Hua sneered, since you know that this is Meng country, how can this Xiao not know? I just want to know, when can a lie be exposed? Martial Uncle Xiao. Panic flashed across the female cultivator's face. She whispered, Senior, what is the meaning of this? This Xiao heard that Ardent Fire Mountain has already been divided into 3 parts. Where did Flaming Hibiscus come from? Where was the fire Chiline? You, who are you? Xiao Hua coldly said, even though this Xiao has some friendship with these two, as Hua Furong's maid, you should naturally know how the 3 elders of Ardent Fire Mountain treated this Xiao in the past, right? This Xiao will not be courteous to the disciples of Ardent Fire Mountain. Martial Uncle Xiao. The female cultivator immediately turned pitiful and said in a low voice, Junior knows her mistake. This junior is the maid of young noble Fire Chiline. However, this junior knows that my young master has offended senior before, so this junior doesn't dare to say it out loud. I hope senior can understand. Tilda Xiao Hua's expression was a bit calm as he lightly said, the Fire Chiline didn't offend this Xiao. If you were the Fire Chiline's servant girl, then this Xiao would definitely not make things difficult for you. Many thanks, Martial Uncle Xiao. A trace of joy flashed through the female cultivator's eyes. She whispered, no wonder Miss Furong has always been praising Martial Uncle. It turns out that Martial Uncle's mind is not ordinary. Tilda Xiao Hua sneered, is this Xiao worth arguing with him? Speaking up to hear, Xiao Hua asked again, how are Flaming Hibiscus and Fire Chiline now? Why did you come to Meng country? Okay, Martial Uncle knows. That female cultivator's face was once again filled with sorrow. She whispered, although Miss Furong and my young master have a very good relationship, but, after all, they are not of the same lineage. The 2 of them are only Foundation Establishment disciples. Under the coercion of a gold core master, they are unable to act independently. Now, they are like fire and water. This junior has received the order of my young master to come to Meng country to handle a secret matter. As for what it is, I hope Marshal Uncle Xiao can understand. This junior can't answer. Millimeter, since it is the matter of the fire Chelin, then this Xiao will not ask anymore. Xiao Hua sighed. This Xiao is old acquaintances with flaming hibiscus and fire Chelin. I don't wish for any gap to appear between them. Yes, my young master is also unwilling. That female cultivator's face was filled with helplessness, but now, ardent fire mountain. Alas, it is already torn apart. My young master is also unable to act independently. Forget it. This is your ardent fire mountain's internal affairs. Whether it is flaming hibiscus or fire Chelin who took the lead, it has nothing to do with this Xiao. Xiao Hua sighed and pointed his finger into the distance. Let's go. A few miles ahead, there seems to be someone looking for you. Perhaps they are looking for you. This Xiao will send you there. He, many thanks, Marshal Uncle Xiao. That female cultivator happily said, this junior will definitely bring Marshal Uncle Xiao's words to my young master. If both of them can live in harmony, how good would that be? Yes, in this world, the most precious thing is family affection. Don't wait until you no longer have the opportunity to know the importance of family affection. Xiao Hua nodded and took the lead to fly up. Not long after, she saw several Foundation establishment cultivators flying over in front of her. Their divine senses also swept over, and the female cultivator's face revealed a happy expression. She called out, Marshal Uncle Xiao, these are the masters who came to find this junior. They are also my young master's martial brothers. You can chat with them as much as you want. At this point, the female cultivator was somewhat hesitant, however, they and Miss Hibiscus are extremely against each other, so it's like this. Xiao Hua hesitated for a moment, then nodded and said, since it's like this Xiao won't go over. If flaming hibiscus were to know, I'm afraid there would be some misunderstandings. After your ardent fire mountain's affairs are finished, it won't be too late for this Xiao to go to ardent fire mountain, then. All right. The female cultivator's face revealed extreme reluctance, then she respectfully bowed and said, this junior thanks Marshal Uncle Xiao for saving my life. This junior will definitely bring Marshal Uncle Xiao's words to my young master. Moreover, this junior will definitely think of a way to bring it to Miss Hibiscus. Please tell me the direction. Good. If that's the case, this Xiao didn't save you in vain. Xiao Hua nodded, then with a flick of his sleeve, he pulled himself away and flew in another direction. Respectfully sending Marshal Uncle Xiao off, the female cultivator stood in midair and called out very respectfully. Xiao Hua naturally didn't reply, and flew further and further away. Miss. The several Foundation establishment cultivators flew closer and immediately surrounded this female cultivator. One of them called out, you, shut up. The female cultivator glared at him, stopping that cultivator. Yes. That cultivator was greatly alarmed and hurriedly shut his mouth, similarly looking into the distance. That cultivator just now was Xiao Hua. The female cultivator saw that Xiao Hua had already flown far away, then said in a low voice, Imperial Thunder Sect Xiao Hua. His tilde that cultivator also exclaimed in a low voice, that Xiao Hua who made outstanding military achievements in the Great Dao Sword War and has some friendship with flaming hibiscus and fire Chelin? That's right. The respect on the female cultivator's face had already completely disappeared, and she said coldly, if he knew my identity, would I still be able to go to that place safely? Would I still be able to find opponents to deal with those two? Yes, this subordinate understands. That cultivator hurriedly replied. Let's go. The female cultivator waved her hand, but this Xiao Hua, hey, he's just a facade. That's right, miss. What happened in Inkcloud Black Forest? There seems to be a great change inside. How did you come out? The Foundation establishment cultivator asked again. There are no other secret passages around here, and the original secret passage seems to have been completely destroyed. What? This place. The female cultivator obviously thought of something, and hurriedly said, how far is this place from the original exit of the secret passage? How long is it from the agreed time? Miss came out earlier than the agreed time. That Foundation establishment cultivator hurriedly replied, moreover, This place is only 3 to 4 li away from the original exit of the secret passage. This is bad. The female cultivator was stunned, then hurriedly reached into her bosom and took out a small storage pouch. When she opened it to take a look, her face unconsciously turned deathly pale. She raised her hand and threw the empty storage pouch into the air, cursing loudly, "Damned Xiao Hua, you. Unfortunately, after saying you a few times, the female cultivator became dejected again. She didn't know what to say anymore. It was as if Xiao Hua's words were ringing in her ears again. I just want to know, when can a lie be exposed? This damned Xiao Hua, he actually knew I was lying from the beginning. The female cultivator slightly narrowed her eyes, looking into the distance. Among those dozen foundation establishment cultivators, I'm afraid one of them is Xiao Hua in disguise, right? Miss Tilda, a foundation establishment cultivator, hurriedly asked, is it the water element ice essence? Yes, those 6 drops of water element ice essence are gone. The female cultivator had already regained her calmness. What should we do? That foundation establishment cultivator was anxious. Without the water element ice essence, how could that person act? Marshall uncle, let's go. Although there is no water element ice essence, I'm here. Am I not worth 6 drops of water element ice essence? The female cultivator indifferently said, since father promised, how could he go back on his words? As long as that senior follows us to the ardent fire mountain, wouldn't it be there? But that foundation establishment cultivator still wanted to say something, but seeing the female cultivator's displeased expression, he could only nod and say, I'll listen to Miss Luan's instruction. Vampage damned Xiao Hua This female cultivator called Miss Luan activated her flying talisman, flying several feet, but still unable to vent her anger, she turned her head back, staring at the direction Xiao Hua disappeared, fiercely cursing a few words, then flew away again. And how could the distant Xiao Hua still hear her? He merely sneered as he flew, inwardly saying, Hehe, you want to play tricks with this Xiao, you're still too inexperienced. Although this Xiao doesn't know if you're the Fire Chaline's maid, with your status as a maid, how could there be water element ice essence in your storage pouch? Moreover, that storage pouch is of the lowest grade. Yes, besides some spirit stones, there's only a disguised jade box inside the storage pouch. There's not even a token. It'd be strange if there's nothing fishy. Originally, this Xiao wanted to wake you up and properly ask you, but since you're Fire Furong's maid, this Xiao will be even more impolite. This Xiao saved your life, yet you still hid it from this Xiao, so what if I took your things? -11. Chapter 3077. Thinking of this, Xiao Hua took out a jade slip and looked at it again and again. Then, he raised his head and seemed to be looking for the sun to identify the direction. Suddenly, a very familiar Buddhist sense came out of the ink cloud black forest, and then a familiar voice transmission sounded in Xiao Hua's ears. Xiao Hua? Why are you here? Haha, this is indeed the ink cloud black forest. It's really weird, really weird. Wasn't this the laughter of the human figure that appeared after the secret path in the ink cloud black forest was destroyed? Hanju. Wasn't he in the Taiching sect? How could he appear in the ink cloud black forest? Could it be that Bai Fei was wrong? Xiao Hua was really shocked. He stopped in midair and turned to look at the ink cloud black forest. Sure enough, a white-haired cultivator in a light-colored Taoist robe flew out of the ink cloud black forest. This old man had 2 thick black broom eyebrows, and a pair of eyes under them were slightly surprised. The pale golden Taoist crown on the old man's head was particularly obvious. Junior Xiao Hua greets Marshal Uncle Han Zhu. Xiao Hua didn't dare to be negligent and hurriedly bowed to greet him. Haha, get up. Han Zhu waved his hand casually and said with a smile, you're now a well-known figure in the Xiaoyu continent. You're no longer the Qi refinement kid I saw in the past. Your progress in the past few decades really makes me happy. Han Zhu changed his scolding outside the Sky Patrol City and treated Xiao Hua with great kindness. I don't dare. Xiao Hua said with a smile, I was just lucky. I can't compare to Marshal Uncle and other gold core cultivators, But my cultivation base is solid. Martial Uncle's scolding that day was very right, and I've learned a lot from Martial Uncle's teachings. Haha, you still have a long way to go, and your future is excellent. With your current reputation and achievements, you'll definitely surpass me after you condense your gold core. Han Zhu said with a smile. By the way, Martial Uncle Tilda Xiaohua asked again, I heard that the Taoist sword war was over, so I wanted to go to the Kunlun sect to find Martial Uncle. But I heard that the gold core masters of the Kunlun sect were invited to the Taiching sect, so they changed their route and came to Meng Kingdom. But, Martial Uncle, why did you come out of the ink cloud Black Forest? Oh, are you looking for me because of that child? Han Zhu's eyes flashed with a strange light. Yes. Xiao Hua smiled bitterly, that child has already been unconscious for several years. My family is very worried, so I have no choice but to ask Martial Uncle for help again. Ha ha ha, fine. Han Zhu looked around and laughed. I don't have time to bring you to the Buddhist sect's ruins. But now, it's a good opportunity. Let's go. I'll bring you to the ruins of the Buddhist sect, and I'll tell you something interesting on the way. When Xiao Hua heard this, he was overjoyed. He bowed and said, Many thanks, Martial Uncle Han Zhu. Along the way, Han Zhu seemed to be very happy. He answered all of Xiao Hua's questions and even took the initiative to tell him about going to the Taiching sect. After hearing Han Zhu's explanation, Xiao Hua came to a sudden realization. When Xiao Hua was participating in the Feather Immortal gathering of the Taiching sect, he had heard from Zhen Qing that the 3 peaks of the Taiching sect were extremely tall. The Taiching sect claimed that these 3 peaks were pillars that supported the heavens and the earth. Moreover, Zhen Qing also said that since ancient times, no one had been able to truly climb to the top of these 3 peaks. However, what Zhen Qing didn't tell Xiao Hua was that because of the 3 peaks, the Taiching sect would hold an ascension to immortality gathering every 60 years. The so-called ascension to immortality gathering was actually organized by the Taiching sect. They would invite Golden Core disciples from the country of Xi, the country of Lian, and the country of Meng to come to the Taiching sect. They would compare their cultivation techniques and exchange their experiences. At the same time, they would fly and climb the 9 heavens from the 3 peaks. Whoever could climb the highest would be the person who would ascend to immortality in the Ascension to Immortality gathering. Of course, the Taiching sect had a lot of rewards. During the process of climbing, they would experience the battle between humans and the heavens, which was extremely useful for the cultivation of many Golden Core disciples. Therefore, many Golden Core disciples felt proud to participate in the Ascension to Immortality gathering. However, the Taiching sect made the decision on who would participate in the Ascension to Immortality gathering. The sects that would be chosen were also controlled by them. Not just any Golden Core disciple could participate. Every Golden Core disciple who could participate in the Ascension to Immortality gathering was an outstanding talent. They were also disciples that the Taiching sect believed would be able to cultivate to the nascent soul stage and become a grandmaster. As for why Zhen Qing didn't mention it to Xiao Hua back then, it was probably because Zhen Qing had never participated in the Ascension to Immortality gathering before. Of course, the Ascension to Immortality gathering this time was different from the previous years. Firstly, it was less than 60 years ago. Secondly, the Dao sect had suffered a great defeat in the Great Dao Sword War. It was also when the Dao sect's cultivators were retreating that Daoist Yu Qing of the Taiching sect came out on a whim and invited the Golden Core disciples of the various sects to the Taiching sect. He probably wanted to boost the low morale of the crowd. In fact, with Han Zhu's cultivation and reputation, he was far from being qualified to participate in the Ascension to Immortality gathering. However, since he accompanied Sho Kongzi to Sky Patrol City to participate in the Great Dao Sword War and also made some contributions, he received an invitation from the Taiching sect. According to Han Zhu's thinking, it was impossible for him to stand out in the Ascension to Immortality gathering. Therefore, he only had the attitude of watching the show. After randomly drawing the heavenly peak, he leisurely set off after everyone rushed up the 3 peaks. However, the strange thing was that when Han Zhu flew to a certain limit, he didn't see any disciples who were flying in front of him. Especially on the heavenly peak, All kinds of dangers appeared as if they were natural barriers that prevented him from approaching the peak. It was also at this moment that he finally understood the meaning of the ascension to immortality gathering. Without a certain cultivation and strength, even a golden core cultivator wouldn't be able to charge out of these natural barriers. Just when he was about to give up, Hanju was once again determined to win. He used a spell to detect that no one was spying on him. In fact, under such natural barriers, it was impossible for anyone to spy on him. Therefore, he secretly used the Buddhist sect's secret technique. What surprised Hanju was that under the support of the Buddhist sect's secret technique, he was able to break through many of the barriers. In the end, he even rushed to the peak of the heavenly peak and broke through the final barrier. He directly entered the land of the 9 heavens that the Taiching sect's cultivators spoke of. However, when Hanju reached the land of the 9 heavens, he suddenly realized that the land of the 9 heavens was actually extremely similar to the ink cloud black forest. Moreover, after Hanju slightly identified the direction, he rushed out of the land of the 9 heavens and appeared in front of Xiao Hua at this moment. What? When Xiao Hua heard the last part, he was dumbfounded. He looked at Hanju in disbelief and said, "You're saying that the ink cloud black forest actually leads to the Taiching sect's 3 peaks? Above the 9 heavens? How is this possible?" "Yes." Hanju also shrugged. His thick eyebrows trembled slightly as if he was about to laugh out loud. This old man definitely didn't expect it. The Taiching sect has held this ascension to immortality gathering for who knows how many years, and the final goal of the ascension to immortality is actually the ink cloud black forest that we normally pass through. If this old man didn't personally experience it, how could I believe it? Even if this old man were to say it out loud today, I'm afraid it would be a joke, right? Xiao Hua shook his head. This experience was truly inconceivable. How could it be possible to break through from the 9 heavens and fly out from the ground? Even if there was some kind of teleportation array, it couldn't be so big. Moreover, from Hanju's words, he simply lifted his leg. He didn't feel any teleportation at all, nor was there any fluctuation of magic power. Ouch! Thinking of this, Xiao Hua suddenly realized that the bursting bubbles he encountered in the secret path, could it be that Hanju was desperately trying to break through the barrier under the ink cloud black forest? Could it be that he was desperately trying to break through the barrier under the ink cloud black forest? Then, Martial Uncle, when you were climbing the flying sky peak, did you notice anything unusual? Xiao Hua was originally curious. When he heard such a strange thing, he couldn't wait to immediately climb the flying sky peak, earth peak, and mortal peak. Of course there was something unusual. Hanju was in a good mood and said with a smile, "From the bottom of the sky peak to the top, I finally came out of the ink cloud black forest. I didn't see any other golden core disciples from other sect. They couldn't have all broken through the barrier, right? If that's the case, then this immortal ascension. What's the point of existing? That's strange." Xiao Hua asked as he flew, "Did you feel anything strange?" "No." Hanju shook his head slightly. It was just like ordinary flying. However, the astral winds, wind, fire, and lightning above the 9 heavens were somewhat powerful. They were testing my cultivation. As for the others, well, even if I broke through the barrier and came to the ink cloud black forest, it was just like ordinary flying. Since ancient times, no one has been able to rush to the top of the mountain. However, Martial Uncle Hanju admitted that he wasn't one of them, but he was able to break through the barrier and reach the 9 heavens that no one else has ever reached. Perhaps this has something to do with Martial Uncle's Buddhist sect cultivation? Xiao Hua asked probingly. He knew that Hanju was very wary of the Buddhist sect and didn't dare to casually ask about it. The Buddhist sect was destroyed by the Daoist sect. It has long become a legend, annihilated in the dust of time. Hanju sighed and nodded. Nowadays, there are very few people who know that the Buddhist sect still exists in this world. Although my cultivation is at the golden core stage, I know that it's absolutely impossible for me to surpass the senior brothers who climbed the mountain. Therefore, if I have to find a reason, it has to be the Buddhist sect's cultivation. Moreover, now that I think about it, I was a bit rash. My desire to win was too strong, or my understanding of Buddhism was insufficient. These dangers are not natural dangers, but a test from the nascent soul masters or the spirit-severing masters. I can't keep my secret anymore. Disciple heard from my thunder-controlling sect's master that even a spirit-severing stage master has never been able to reach the peak of the Tai Ching sect's heaven, earth, and mortal peak. Xiao Hua comforted again, so wouldn't those dangers be even more powerful? -11. Chapter 3078. Speaking up to here, Xiao Hua bitterly smiled. Yes, Han Zhu, a golden core cultivator, actually rushed to the top of the sky peak that even spirit-severing stage masters couldn't climb. How could this not be noticed? Wasn't he caught in the same dilemma as her? So, Han Zhu smiled and said, I'll take this opportunity to hide for a while and see the situation of the Tai Ching sect. If someone appears from the ink cloud Black Forest, then I'll jump out and admit it. Otherwise, I'll have to think about how to deal with it. If no one appears from the ink cloud Black Forest, then Martial Uncle won't be able to explain it, Xiao Hua said with a smile. Indeed. This is also the reason why I have to hide for a while and think about it carefully. Han Zhu didn't avoid it and explained, moreover, I'll take this opportunity to go to the ruins of the Buddhist sect and awaken your relative. This can be considered as a bit of merit for me. Yes, Martial Uncle's benevolence is far from what I can compare to. Xiao Hua said with a smile very naturally. Yes, the cultivation of the Buddhist sect is different from that of the Daoist sect. Not only do we have to be proficient in the Buddhist Dharma, but we also have to be benevolent. We have to face the sufferings of the world with a heart that says if I don't go to hell, who will go to hell? Only then can we comprehend the profoundness of the Buddhist Dharma. Han Zhu nodded and said, Then, what is hell? Xiao Hua smiled bitterly. It's the place where all ghosts go, the source of all evil. Han Zhu explained without hesitation, after all living things die, they have to go through the trial of hell in order to have the possibility of reincarnation. Only by going through hell can one eliminate the sins of the mortal world and reincarnate into the 6 paths of reincarnation. Isn't that the same as the netherworld? Xiao Hua gasped. He almost said that it was the same as the netherworld that Hutu god transformed into. That's right. Han Zhu nodded. Hell and the netherworld are the same. They're both places where souls go. Then where is this hell? Xiao Hua suddenly recalled the pitch-black silhouette that he saw through the netherworld mirror and the inexplicable words. How would I know? Han Zhu said indifferently, this hell is the opposite of the Buddhist sect's Western paradise. It's the most hidden place in the world. Even when the Buddhist sect prospered, countless Buddhist monks tirelessly searched for it, but still couldn't find it. Now that the Buddhist sect has long been annihilated, who can still find it? Then, where did this Western paradise and hell come from? Xiao Hua loved to get to the bottom of things, so he immediately asked. The Western paradise is also known as the Western paradise. It is a world of solemnity, tranquility, and equality that the Supreme Buddha of the Buddhist sect has achieved through the 48 Great Wishes. The Buddhists and people here were all born from the lotus flowers in the 7 treasures pool. They were all great arhats who possessed the body of Vajra Narayan. The people here are all good people, so they don't suffer, hence the name bliss. Han Zhu flew in the air and looked into the distance with great longing. Furthermore, the people in the Western paradise all have supreme Buddhist Dharma. No matter what aptitude they have, they can cultivate Buddhist Dharma. Buddhist Dharma is a natural combination with the Tao of heaven and earth. It can move mountains, drain seas, and summon the wind and rain. If the Western paradise is the residence of the gods and Buddhas, then hell would be the depraved land of thousands of evil ghosts. It would be filthy beyond compare. The evil ghosts within would suffer the bone-scraping pain of the chilly wind every day, and suffer the bone-piercing pain of the ghost stars every night. Uncle Master, since you don't know where hell is, then what about the Western paradise? Is there a place to go? Xiao Hua asked with longing. The Western paradise that the Buddha has established is located in the West. It is 10 trillion Buddhist lands away from the Soha world that we live in, the 5 turbid evil worlds. Han Zhu said with melancholy. That tone and his somewhat ferocious face made people feel baffled. The Soha world. Xiao Hua was even more confused. This was the first time he had heard the word world. Moreover, it appeared from time to time in Han Zhu's mouth. It seemed that his own exquisite leaf scripture didn't have such a word. The Soha world refers to the mortal world. It doesn't only belong to my Xiaoyu continent. Han Zhu explained. Just like the cultivation world, there are also millions of Meng mountains. Oh. Although Xiao Hua was confused, he knew that if he went to the ruins of the Buddhist sect, he would definitely be able to obtain a lot of scriptures. His doubts would all be solved. Therefore, he didn't ask any more about the Soha world. What is Buddhist lands? Disciple only knows that distances are measured in feet, and li. How can there be Buddhist lands? Buddhist lands? One Buddhist lands is the 3,000 boundless worlds. In the eyes of the mortal world, this Buddhist lands can't be crossed even if he used 3 lifetimes. And this Buddhist lands are in the hearts of the devout Buddhists. Under the guidance of the Bodhisattva, they can reach it in an instant. Han Zhu chuckled and explained. Then, he suddenly asked, Xiao Hua, do you know how long an instant is? How long? A while. Xiao Hua was stunned and casually replied. A flick of the finger is 60 instants. An ordinary person can have 900 thoughts in an instant. Do you know how long an instant is? Think about it, Buddhists only need an instant to cross the 3,000 boundless worlds. How great is that? That Buddha is so merciful to all living beings. Relying on the power of Buddha, he can bring karma to the Pure Land. Han Zhu sighed and said. So short. Xiao Hua was flabbergasted. However, he smiled and said, then it's better to cross the 3,000 boundless worlds in an instant. Isn't that faster? What do you know? Han Zhu sneered. The Western Pure Land is the place where Buddhists achieve great success. It's already Buddha's grace that ordinary Buddhists can go there. Moreover, in an instant, 900 thoughts will arise. These thoughts are both good and evil. If there's only one evil thought, it'll be tainted by obsession. How can one enter the Western Pure Land? Xiao Hua curled his lips and whispered, isn't this Buddha too harsh? Han Zhu wanted to scold him again, but Xiao Hua's heart skipped a beat. He hurriedly said, that's right, martial uncle, what's that boundless world? Could it be that there's a small thousand world? Every small world has the same form. In the center, there's Mount Meru. It passes through the sea and stands on the earth wheel. Below the earth wheel is the golden wheel, below it is the water wheel, below it is the wind wheel, and beyond the wind wheel is the void. The top and bottom of Mount Meru are big, but the center is small. The sun and moon are on the mountainside. The 4 heavenly kings reside on the 4 sides of the mountainside. The Daoli heaven is at the top of the mountain. Above the Daoli heaven are the Yama heaven, Tusita heaven, Huala heaven, and Paravirambhava heaven. Above them are the 18 heavens of the color realm and the 4 heavens of the colorless realm. At the base of Mount Meru are 7 layers of golden mountains and 7 layers of perfume seas. Between each sea is a layer of mountains. Outside the 7th layer of golden mountains is the Alkali Sea. Beyond the Alkali Sea is the Grand Taiwei Mountain. Around the Alkali Sea are 4 major continents. They are the Dongsheng Divine Continent, protected by Heavenly King Kaigwa in the east, the Nansibu Continent, protected by Heavenly King Zhangzhang in the south, the Aparagadania Continent, protected by Heavenly King Guangmu in the west, and the Uttarakuru Continent, protected by Heavenly King Duo Wen in the north. They are called the 4 heavens. Beside each continent are 2 middle continents and hundreds of small continents. The 9 mountains and 8 seas, the sun and the moon, the 4 major continents, the 6 desires heaven, and the initial Zen 3 heavens above. 1,000 small worlds, with the 2 Zen 3 heavens above them, formed a small thousand world. 1,000 small thousand worlds, with the 3 Zen 3 heavens above them, formed a middle thousand world. 1,000 middle thousand worlds, with the 4 Zen 9 heavens above them, and the 4 empty heavens above them, formed a great thousand world. Because there are multiples of 3,000 in the middle, the great thousand world is also called the 3,000 great thousand world. Han Zhu explained patiently. Unfortunately, Xiao Hua was a little dizzy from listening, especially because he was very disappointed. This was because there had never been any life in his space. He thought that his space was a minor kiliocosm, but according to Frost Bamboo, his space was completely different from the so-called minor kiliocosm. Yes, it was even different from a minor kiliocosm. How could he be interested? What? Han Zhu asked faintly. Your ancestral mantra doesn't mention anything about it. You have also read the Prajnaparamita Heart Sutra. There is no explanation about it, Xiao Hua said with a smile. Seeing that Han Zhu thought of something, he asked embarrassedly, also, Martial Uncle, this disciple still has a question. Please don't blame me. Asked Han Zhu glanced at Xiao Hua and nodded. This. Xiao Hua slightly hesitated and said in a low voice, although the Buddhist sect was destroyed. But, this Mount Meru, this grand Tai Wei mountain, they were not destroyed. As expected by Xiao Hua, Han Zhu glared at Xiao Hua and then said with a cold snort, You are asking this old man, who should this old man ask? These are all records of the Western Paradise. You will know once you go to the Western Paradise. Yes, Xiao Hua knew that he had hit Han Zhu's weak spot and hurriedly smiled apologetically. Presumably, this Mount Meru was also destroyed by my Dao sect. Your Dao sect? Han Zhu said faintly, I'm afraid that you have to figure out whether you are a Dao sect or a Buddhist sect. Then what about Martial Uncle? Xiao Hua hurriedly said, this disciple is really confused now. But what you are, this disciple is. What this old man is, this old man naturally understands. Han Zhu did not look at Xiao Hua and only looked at the floating clouds in the distance. He said word by word, but what you are, you must figure it out yourself. You are not the same as this old man. Xiao Hua sucked in a breath of cold air and was slightly shocked in his heart. Not only are you different from this old man, the 6 people that you are about to meet are also different. Han Zhu did not notice Xiao Hua's abnormality and said again, everyone has their own path and the right to choose the path that they want to walk. Perhaps you did not have to choose before exploring the ruins of the Buddhist sect. But after arriving at the ruins of the Buddhist sect, you must make a choice. Although Han Zhu's words were obscure, Xiao Hua understood it very well. He had also said these words to others before. Thus, he bitterly smiled and said, Martial Uncle, didn't you also come to the ruins of the Buddhist sect before? Could it be that you already made a choice at that time? 11. You're tuning in to the Celestial War YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.